Nerdcube.
Mr. Fickle.
Deep finesse. Story. On a wall. Get ready for Terra Mystica's Tuesday League.
Hi there, folks. It is so exciting to be with you here tonight. I'm here with my good friend Eric, also known as Nerdcube, and a fellow Premier League, competitor. Eric, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How's it going, everybody? Sad to not be playing this week, but it's cool to be on the sidelines watching it. We're at Fickles Field this week. Mr. Fickles is our host. He wanted everyone to know water's $8.
Awesome stuff. I'm so excited to be here tonight casting with you. It's been quite a while since we teamed up together and last cast in the Fire to Open, and it's cool to reunite here tonight for this Premier League game.
Yeah, been a couple seasons. The dream team back together.
The boys are back together. Let's bring it home. So I guess we can kind of jump into Terra Mystica Tuesday League. For those that haven't been around, this is the Premier League of Terra Mystica's Tuesday League. This is the highest of the high, the best of the best players all brought together. And I think it was when we started off, and it may still be, Nerdcube, tell me if I'm wrong, but 5 of the top 10 ELO players on the entire site right now, correct?
Yeah, I think so we were all right up there, and I think a couple of us have dropped, but it's been because we're playing each other, right? This Tuesday League has now had all the highest ELO players battling each other, so these are players who would all normally win every game they play, but someone's got to take fourth every week now. It's been cool seeing that, like, this league doing its job, right, and like bringing very high competitive tables, like every week all these top players are getting to play a really high level game.
It's awesome. I currently literally watch. I haven't been able to tune into all of them, but I've been watching the VODs for every single one, and it's been a battle in there. I think something really cool that we've seen is just this myriad of different strategies across the board from the highest level players that you wouldn't normally always see, including our very own Eric here starting double temple in every single game so far, actually precluding himself from even bidding on Chaos Magicians in the last setup. So hopefully we see something cool tonight, and I'm excited to maybe see some water twos for George Shortwell out here, or some really cool starts. I would love to see it come down.
I've already asked who's going to be doing the double temple in my place, so hopefully I put that out there for everyone. Hopefully we see something fun.
Okay, to dive in here, so Deep Finesse is out to quite a commanding lead. He's got 2 wins in the bye. Second place right now is Barnawall, who's got a first and a last. Kind of the first and the last, showing you that it's really anyone's game on any given week. And next in line here are actually yourself, Mr. Fickles, and Astari, all at 4 points. And these 4 points, like this visual on the screen here doesn't tell the entire story, obviously. I mean, even in the last game here, second and fourth, I think, was separated by just a single point, right? So these games have been extremely tight and just, like I said, wonderful to watch. Last week, if some of the viewers hadn't tuned in, Barnawall played a really, really special Chaos Magicians game that was just, he took a setup and just absolutely followed the track and crushed it. It was pretty cool to see. I'm sure you didn't feel quite the same way being in the game there and watching him rack up the points like that.
Oh, it was sweet to see, right? Everyone, I've played a lot of Arena this season, right? And we all thought Chaos Magicians are terrible on lakes, and I mean, Barnwell got a head start, but then he crushed us all by like way more than even the bidding margin. So that was cool to see, just like an absolute smashing Chaos Magicians game. So yeah, that was awesome. And if he can put up another game this week, I mean, like you said, Deep Finesse is off to a pretty commanding lead, but Barnwell can close that gap, right? If Barnwell takes another first tier, it's that puts it probably at a 2-horse race between him and Deep Finesse heading into the final week. So this is like a really important week for Barnwell, and if he can either get first himself or at least beat Deep Finesse this week, it sets up an exciting final week.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, I think what we'll do is I think we're going to dive into seeing the board here in just a quick sec if Zora's to bring it up perfect. Here we go. And it actually looks like we're gonna join the game with the bidding already in process. So, just because that we got the board flashing here, Eric, do you want to just dive
Oh, I
in
see
and
round
tell us
six
what you see?
towns, maybe this is exciting. So yeah, we talk about this a lot, but right, like I love seeing high scoring tracks. This track isn't the craziest high scoring or anything, but round six towns is just it's one of those uncapped things, right? We can see four town games from everyone, um, you know, theoretically, and so yeah, that's just like a game defining event to see the round six towns. Um, and then, yeah, before that, unfortunately, it's not the greatest. We see Sanctuary Stronghold back to back in round five and six. That combined with the round six towns, I don't think that's really hard to like build a big building, build another big building, and then like still have not formed any of your towns yet, and then like wait till round six to form them all. So it's like, you know, we're gonna see people picking one of those three events to really hit. I think probably the town one, but we'll probably see. I imagine because we see Orin and Cultist have already been picked. I imagine we'll see Orin or Cultist like rushing out a Sanctuary in round four to try to race for that two key town, forming one of their towns early, then hopefully getting two more towns in round six. And then we see early trading post, spade trading post for the first three rounds. Nothing too exceptional about that. Nothing crazy that anyone's going to do. Round three is like, maybe about as early as you can get a trading post event and really have someone take advantage of that. So it's possible we could see Giants, for example. A Giants player with a good start can get out, a stronghold on a couple dwellings in the first round, a few more dwellings in the second round, and be ready to just maybe build all of their trading posts in the third round. So that's maybe the kind of thing to watch out for there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And why don't we just jump over to those the scrolls there as well before we talk about the color matchup? It looks like we've got the big building scroll there, which is synergistic with that round 4 and 5 big building. So you'll see players really trying to pass on to that, as well as the fact that giant starklings, really giant starklings and Orin all love that. So that's gonna be really hotly contested, and it's something that we'll be watching kind of throughout the game. We also have shipping and dwelling scoring, and so really we're only missing that TP scoring, which actually missing the TP scoring makes kind of building all those TPs in round three and then maybe air one sanctuary in round four a little bit less appealing because you won't be able to score them on the path.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Let's look at the color here. This is a pretty for the most part a pretty balanced color matchup with the red, green, black, blue. Obviously, Darklings and Cultists very strong, traditionally strong factions where Giants and Or are not so much. So, what do you see here?
Well, so one thing to point out real quick is that we are playing with landscapes on. I don't think we mentioned that yet. So this was Mr. Fickle's home week. He picked base map landscapes on. And so Orin and Giants, normally you'd easily spot them 10 points in this kind of matchup. But with landscapes on suddenly, right, like Giants landscape is just at least a 6 point landscape. Orin, can be a 8 or 12 point landscape in this kind of matchup. So that suddenly closes the gap a lot. Darklings and Cultists are still very powerful, and I still do agree with them being, the ones to bid on here. But it's suddenly the kind of thing where Darklings and Cultists are color neighbors. They're going to be competing for territory. If Darklings choose to start in the center on E5, that can make both of their lives difficult, right? Like they'll be fighting for the center and the north territory. If Darklings choose to start on G5, that gets in Cultist way. So there's a lot of things that Cultists and Darklings can do to get in each other's way. Meanwhile, Orin and Giants don't have color neighbors, right? Giants can sit and get a bunch of leech in the middle of the map. Orin are, in a great position to get a bunch of leech. They're not going to have anyone fighting for their natural colored hexes. Like I think Giants and Orin are going to be might be fairly underrated at this point. Like having Darklings spotting Giants 10 points is, I don't know. It's close, but I feel like people underrate Giants. I mean, of course I'm going to say that, but I feel like people underrate Giants with landscapes quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think the underrated part about Giants landscape too is I think it's better than just 6 points, and I think you agree with me because opening up that extra digging strategy without having to use that extra priest and that extra resources and stuff like that. It makes me actually believe that even in non-landscape games, there may be paths the Giants are supposed to go down to use their surplus of power and stuff like that to advance digs and get a couple extra hexes. It made me really think about that because I've seen so much success with people using that Giants landscape to advance digs and just have a couple of 2 worker digs here and there at the end of the game just to lock up those towns. I would be really surprised if we don't see something like that here as well.
Yeah, I think so. With Giants, it's definitely a bit easier when there's no color neighbors for them in the game. But Giants, like getting 3 towns is not always like, it doesn't always happen just easily, right? Sometimes, especially in these color matchups, right? If people are fighting for hexes, sometimes as Giants, you just find yourself like 1 dig short, right? You're like 1 red hex short of like getting that 3rd town, and that 3rd town is hugely important because it's around 6 towns game. And that landscape is, so it's 6 points and maybe 2 workers that you need, 2 workers if you're having to do a hard dig to get down your last, dwelling that you need for a town. So yeah, I think the landscape is like super consequential this game. If it's 6 points and 2 workers, that's a massive head start over everyone else. And yeah, I mean, so if we can say Orange landscape, let's give them 8 points for that landscape. Giants is 6 points and 2 workers. I mean, to me, that's saying Giants have the best landscape in the game right now, right? Like that's a huge boost. And I agree with Mr. Fickle's like valuation here that Giants are, they're not the 30 faction, right? I think Orin are the 30 faction here.
Yeah, and I think I think honestly, we were to go and take a quick look at the Snellman data, and I don't have it in front of me, and I try to do too many things when I'm on these casts. I won't do it, but I think historically, what you'll see is that if I'm not mistaken, green is actually the favorite in this color matchup, just like in a color vacuum. Like just if you just look at green versus black versus brown versus red, and I think obviously a lot of that has to do with starting on F4 there. And being able to kind of cut through the middle. Although to be fair, generally when you're looking at those color matchups, it's Chaos Magicians and not Giants. So it'll be interesting to see. Can we start talking a little bit about and if our production can throw on the map indices there, that'd be awesome. But if we can just start talking a little bit about these starting spots. I know this is like the traditional base map, but it's always good to hear from an expert or a master. I'm not sure. Are you still a master?
No, not anymore. Next week.
Uh, exactly, a Terra Mystica master like Eric, and find out what he's thinking about the setup here and the potential pros and cons of each faction. So if you just talk to us a little bit about what you see here, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I think the obvious one we'll say is cultists are starting in the middle on E6, right? Orin are starting next to them on F4. Giants are starting on D4. So that's going to be a big leech party for cultists. They're just going to kind of be in the middle of everything there. And then I think we'll see Giants on D7 and Orin on E9, right? Just the pretty standard starting spots for Giants, pretty standard spots for Orin, and then at least the one standard center spot for cultists. I think the rest of the intrigue comes from where Darklings and cultists are going to start. I imagine we'll see cultists on F5 just because that feels like it's going to be the easiest to connect for cultists. Unfortunately, they have to place both of their dwellings before Darklings place their second dwelling. So if cultists place on F5, that probably means Darklings are going to be on G5. So that's a bummer for cultists. And then the last big question is where the hell does Darkling's second dwelling go? And I think that's what's actually really interesting here. We saw, I think a few weeks ago in the Premier League, I think it might have been the first week on base map, Mr. Fickles played Darklings and started E5 as Darklings, and kind of showed how difficult it can be sometimes when you split start. Like E5 is, in my opinion, just kind of an awkward starting location a lot of times, especially if you don't get E6. If there's Darklings, you can get E6, you can build a sanctuary town in the center there, life is great. If you don't, it's both difficult to connect your structures because you're starting, with your structure split, and kind of difficult to get to a spot for a third town because there's no great hexes to ship to with only one shipping from E5. You kind of have to dig your way out of there first and then ship to more hexes. And by that time, other people might have taken those hexes. So I'll be really interested to see where the Darkling's second dwelling goes. My money might be on B5. This is something that Bizzle actually did against me in a few games as Darklings. I was playing Giants, he was playing Darklings, and starting on B5, as it turns out, really screws up Giants because they often really like to take those northern red hexes, kind of like they count on connecting through the north, they count on building a third town somewhere in the north. And so that's great for Darklings, like to deny that to Giants. It's great for Darklings because I think Orin will end up on C4 pretty quickly. In the first few rounds, I think we'll see Orin on C4. So they'll get a neighbor up there. It gives Darklings an outside shot to connect themselves. If they're able to dig around some places in the east. It does give them a shot to connect. Yeah, I think B5 Darklings is where I would go here. But there's a lot of places that could happen, like H5, E5, C1. Like there's a lot of stuff in play, and yeah, but that's really going to influence the matchup.
Yeah, and do you think that giants are just auto starting D4, D7?
I think so. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is starting G2, but I don't really see a reason for that. I think D7 is just such a great hex for expanding. But yeah, I don't see much of a reason to not start on D7.
Got it. And it looks like we've got a game here. So
Yeah.
Darklings and Cultists both ending on 18, and Orin and Giants both on 30. This seems to me to be a relatively fair auction. I know that you think, Eric, that Giants are. Would you say substantially better than Orin? Like, did Barnwell have a misstep here, or do you think that this is relatively fair and you just prefer Giants?
I think Giants. I'd give Giants at least 5 points on Orin here. I think they're going to have a bit of an edge in network. I think Orin are going to have a bit of a hard time closing out cults with cultists in the game. Orin so badly need to close out cults to, like, it's doubly good for them both because like that's their power with their stronghold, and they'll make points on the cults, and because of their landscape, right? I saw this when I played Orin a few weeks ago in the Premier League, right? Where it's like you start getting in these positions where you have to do really awkward things to close out cults because you're realizing that like closing out this cult is like a 12-point swing against someone, right? It's like it's 4 points for you, minus 4 points for them, and 4 points for your landscape. And so suddenly you're doing like really awkward things and sacrificing network and passing tiles and all these other things. So I think it gets quite a bit awkward when there's another cult faction in the game for Orin who's competing for the 2-key town and competing to close out those cults. So we'll see. I'd put Giants at least a few points better than Orin. And I think Darklings or cultists. One of them is really overbid. It's hard to tell, and it might depend here on starting locations. We do see Darklings starting E5. So like cultists are going to have a bit of trouble expanding. Darklings might have a bit of trouble connecting. I do feel like Darklings and cultists are going to get in each other's way, and I'm feeling that Giants have a pretty big advantage right now. Like their stronghold is going to allow them to dictate so much flow of this game of who gets what territory. I think they're going to be the favorites to win network right now. Yeah, I really like this position for Giants.
Yeah, awesome. And we see here that we do get the G5 E5 start, and I wouldn't be surprised if D Finesse takes a page out of your book here and starts with the two
I was just
worker
about to
pass
say
tile
that.
to
Yeah,
go double
there's
tempo.
no spade in the game.
Yeah,
There's nothing else he really wants. Why not?
No spade in the game. The thing that a little bit worries me just a tad about that double tempo opening here, obviously, is that a natural tile for Istar to take in the 3-seat there is that priest tile, and then immediately snipe F3 or G4 away from him. Part of the challenge of cultists in this particular matchup anyway is the fact that those are under threat, right? And so this is one of those things where cultist is going to have to play a really precise game, and there's going to be some things that may or may not break appropriately for them. And that G4 hex in particular is pretty interesting as Darklings, because starting on the east and starting on E5 make a pretty easy town E5 through C1, a pretty easy town G5 through E10. And if you get G4, you all of a sudden have this pretty easy town, H5, I8, I7, and Darklings have no problem taking that gray if Orin are already all over G3, H4, and I6. So it's definitely something to look out for in the cadence of the beginning of the game. And we actually see Orin forego E9 here, making cultists start on F5 even a little bit worse. And of course, Mr. Fickles foregoing D7 because of Barnwell's decision in favor of G2, making cultist life on E6 more challenging, and actually decreasing the importance of that F3 square, I would say, pretty substantially as well.
This is nuts.
So what do you see out of this opening here, Eric? Let's hear it.
It seems like Barnwell has to really be banking, unless so I started in these positions as Orin and I opened double temple Orin. So I don't think Barnwell's thinking that, but maybe. Like I said, I did ask them to start double temple, but my guess is he has to be banking on. So giants or cultists we think are going to take the 2 worker tile, and then we think darklings would take the priest. And so if Orin are banking on getting worker power and getting that double spade and locking up the whole center before giants have a stronghold out, that has to be my guess what he's banking on with these starting spots.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean the other thing that he might be banking on is just, well, in the east darklings are going to cut me off anyways, right? Like they're going to take g6 before I get there anyways. Like why do I need to start over there? Like there's no sense in racing anyone to any of that stuff over there. I might as well claim this green hex before giants get it.
Yep.
So that, I mean, that's going to be what he's thinking too. But part of it, so I've played quite a few green matchups on this map, like between International Clash and then a few weeks ago in the Premier League. And one of the things that just gets tricky when you start in this position, like without temp shipping as green, is it's just kind of like, what are you going to do with your power actions? Like, if you get the double spade here, for example, like where would you put them? Giants act before you, so like giants could actually potentially have their stronghold out before Orin are able to take the double spade. Right, and then if you get the power to take a double spade, like where do you put that now as Orin? Like suddenly you can't do that. Sometimes as green, like it's nice to have this like backup plan, like, oh, like I could just always bridge to G3. Like if nothing else, I could get out another dwelling by bridging to G3. Well, with these starting positions, suddenly you're like kind of hoping to not have to bridge to G3. So like
Yeah.
there's just a few like little awkward things with this, like especially when temp shipping is in the game. Orin are really going to need, I think, to like get to 1 to 2 shipping early to like, because they do want to make their way over to those greens over in the east. But that's just another thing working against Orin in this game is the temp shipping tile is so dang good for green factions, and not having that, I think, is going to really slow the early expansion.
For sure. I also think temp shipping is extremely important for Darklings in this particular game, which might sound counterintuitive because I think a lot of people would say, hey, like temp shipping is great for cultists because they can win the race up to B3, and temp shipping is great for giants because they can fly around to D67, A12, right, all that kind of stuff. But temp shipping in this game, in my mind, makes Darklings so substantially better because your best bet in these round 3 town games with Darklings is you're never connecting, right? So you want to dig up through C1, take the temp ship over to B2, set up your towns, and then just never advance shipping, because advancing shipping as Darkling is instead of a priest, for 2 points and a dig, you're doing a priest and 4 coins for 2 points, and it's really really unappealing in this particular setup where your network aspirations are probably not the strongest anyway. And I think what we're going to see here, Eric, is exactly what you were worried about, because if I'm Mr. Fickles, I'm not stopping for 1 second. I'm making my stronghold next turn. Barnwall can't take the double dig yet, and I'm making sure that I secure D5, because if I lose D5 and E7, but in particular D5, it's hard to get over there to the east, and that's kind of a worst case scenario. So um, I think you're right. I really like Mr. Fickle's kind of opening gambit here to start in the double center, and it'll be interesting to see what Barnwell does with what he's given.
Yeah, I think I really don't like the double center start as giants, just because I think it's too risky. It forces you to, it puts too much pressure on you where you have to rush stronghold with your first 2 actions, right? There's so many things that can go wrong. You're like counting on maybe someone else not giving green enough leech to take the double dig, and all these things. But the fact that they're in the first seat, the fact that Orin are in the second seat and therefore not able to take the double dig with their first action, right? Like all these things are breaking well, so that giants are essentially guaranteed to get one of those 2, center hexes like you talked about. And they need that also for connection. That's the other thing we didn't talk about is, if you start double center, like sometimes connecting can be really weird as giants if everyone else, takes up, all those center hexes. But in this position, I think they're pretty guaranteed to get one of those 2 hexes. And so, yeah, I think this move's actually interesting. They are going to need to get over those natural red hexes in the east as quickly as they can, but it looks like they're going to be able to do that.
So there's a couple interesting things here I would love to chat about, and I would love to pick your brain about, especially for the audience. So first off, if I'm Orin here, I'm upgrading on F4 first, and so I would love your thought process there. And then also, if I'm cultist here, even though I'm in the 4th seat, I would have upgraded E6 first in this particular setup, because you get the extra leech. I know you're giving your opponent some extra leech as well, but they're still going to upgrade there, and you're going to miss that, right? And ostensibly, you're upgrading E6 anyway, unless he's leaving that
Yeah,
to
so
be.
I want to talk
Can
about
you
that cultist one first,
walk me
actually,
through
because
this
I
a little?
think this is really interesting and really correct by Deep Finesse here. So Deep Finesse, you can see, moved up the water track with that step. So with the step he got from Darkling's accepting Leech. So because cultists start on step 0, right? They need all four. They need 4 steps to move up and get that water spade reward at the end of the first round. And what Deep Finesse is doing here is he's saving his second temple for the center, where he has 3 people that are going to be accepting Leech. So if you're Istari, right, and Deep Finesse builds his first temple in the center, and then he builds a second temple over by you off in the east, Istari would absolutely, I think, decline the second, one power Leech to deny Deep Finesse the spade. The question, by putting his first temple over in the east, what Deep Finesse is doing is saying, I want you to make that decision now. I want you to deny me step 2 of water instead of step 4 of water. And suddenly that's just like a little bit more difficult of a mental decision for Astari to make, to say like, well, I'm only getting him to step 2, like there's still other things that have to happen for him to get to step 4. Maybe Astari like wants that leech for something earlier in the round, like he could get a coins action or something, right? Like, so there, I think by moving up the decision, right, Deep Finesse wants to know as early in the round as possible, is Astari going to take this leech from me in the east? And from there, he can plan the rest of his round 2, how he wants to pass, what power actions he needs to take. And he can be pretty confident that when he upgrades this temple in the center, someone is going to take leech from him because he's got 3 neighbors there. And so he will be getting 2 steps then. So yeah, I really like this decision from Deep Finesse.
That is fascinating. That's like I love that analysis. That's this is exactly why I love casting with you. I learn so much every time because honestly, I wouldn't have considered that. I really would have upgraded E6 first, taken that extra leech. Um, and just because it looks so much like it's going to be double temple open. But I also wonder, like, is there any world where he deviates from that and make sure that he secures G4 here? I guess it's much less important now that Istari just threw that first priest to Earth, and also I want to pick your mind about everything here, Eric, because it's just so awesome to be able to chat with you on this stuff. But I do want to continue to focus on the game as well. And Barnwell did open with Earth 2, which I mean, if I was going to start with an econ favorite here, I would go Air 2 for Orin, and so I would just love again just some thoughts on that.
Yeah. So it's not Water 2, which is a bummer. We'll say that to start. Sorry, George Shortwell. It would have been sweet, right? But I'm trying to think like the benefits of Earth 2. So obviously, like the Earth cult coins come earlier than the Air cult rewards. So in terms of that, right, like it's going to be a couple coins earlier. The other thing I always think about, right, is just like in terms of raw resources, Earth 2 is like the best income favor tile, right? So like just in terms of like, if you assume that, Air 2, right, gets you 8 power over 2 rounds, which could be a coins action, so that's 7 coins. That's better than Fire 2, theoretically, right? If you get that coins action, it's better than Fire 2 because Fire 2 only gets you 6 coins over 2 rounds. But then that Air 2 could also be a worker's action. 8 power, could be a worker's action, which gets you 2 workers. But Earth 2 over those 2 rounds will get you 2 workers and 2 extra power. So like if you get the power actions you want and at the right time and you actually need those resources like those workers or those coins or whatever, Earth 2 just kind of feels like the most raw resources, right?
Yep.
But you have to need those workers, and so I guess the question is, does Barnwell need those workers? It's either does Barnwell need those workers, or are these 2 coins that he's going to get at the end of round 2, from taking Earth 2, like that significant? Answer to 1, I don't know if he needs those workers. I think what he needs more is coins, because we talked about, he really wants to advance his shipping here. Like getting to 2 shipping from this position is really, really good. Well, I guess as Orin, you tend to either want spades or shipping, right? Shipping, you can just ship to all these greens with 2 shipping, or spades, you can kind of like dig your way to some of them with 1 shipping. So either way, I feel like Barnwell's bigger need right now is coins and power. Coins or power, I guess. So I do kind of feel like this Earth 2 is like a little bit too fancy, maybe. I just don't. I think he's going to end up in a position where he has more workers than he needs, and he's short either coins or power for spades. Um,
Yeah.
but I do like that it's an econ favor. It's, you know, I've learned my lesson from the International Clash. Don't rush Earth 1 as green. Just
Yeah.
you need an econ favor, a stronghold, something to boost you up there, especially when you start like this double center. You know, you need a lot of resources to expand out of this center. And so, yeah, so I love that he went in econ favor. It's still better than Earth 1 in my book for him.
Yeah, and I strongly agree here as well. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think what Earth 2 may foreshadow a little bit, and we can talk about this as Istari, goes ahead and takes he's taking quite a long time here. I wonder if he's thinking about which favor to take, or whether to do take a priest power action or a coins power action. But what I think Barnwell's decision may foreshadow here, and it's hard to say, but what it may foreshadow is that he's planning to play a really tall game where worker production is going to be a problem. The track does dictate, a relatively tall game as well. Like part of me wonders if he's about to make a TP here, just to take better advantage of this track, even though that's generally not what you would see. And who knows exactly what his game plan is, but it'll definitely be interesting to see. I think Mr. Fickles here has there's no issue with him just going ahead and taking a priest power action here, right?
Priest or coins. He is locking up this center just to be safe. That's probably a decent idea, but yeah, I mean, he can also save his power for next round. Yeah, so we do see that he is getting this center, which is so important, right? It's going to connect him to the east. It's going to allow him to get a sanctuary town in the center. Great play by Mr. Fickles. He's now connected onto shipping to his southern dwelling. So yeah, I like this a good amount from him.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Fickles is going to get the world here, right? Because he's getting cultist upgrading. He's going to get more of that early power that's, really essential. It's a good one. I think one of the things that we might want to look out for as well is that I'm not 100% sure how this is going to play out, or if D Finesse has something up his sleeve that I don't necessarily know about. But do you think that D Finesse is potentially putting his cult dig on E9 and trying to kind of escape, further into the Eastern continent? I know that maybe looks a little bit bad, but I just don't know if he's passing before Darkling.
That's exactly what I was wondering. We see Deep Finesse hasn't taken the coins yet. Like as any faction going double temple, I think like usually the best way to go double temple, right, is to start on the 2 worker tile and then take a 7 coins action. Right, and that gives you all the resources you need. And so like usually that's the thing you like. When I'm starting double temple, that's what I want, right, to be able to get. And Deep Finesse hasn't taken a coins action yet. So to me, that might be saying that he is hoping to save his power for the double spade next round, so he could turn that gray hex. What we need to turn it to red. That would still leave it a triple dig away from Darklings, so it would be safe from Darklings. And then he could do a double dig on it and bust through there over to the rest of the east. So that's my best guess right now. That's what he's hoping for. When Darklings upgrade to a temple, Deep Finesse will have just enough leech to convert a power to a coin, pass, and take the double spade. And I think they should be able to get all of that. They'll be short a few coins maybe, but I'm assuming he'll take Fire 1 or get on a bonus tile that has those. So yeah, I think that's a good plan for Deep Finesse. It both gives him room to expand and gets in Darkling's way. Suddenly Darklings don't have this territory off in the east anymore. And if that happens, okay, we're gonna go deeper here for a minute. If that happens, right? If Deep Finesse takes some of these hexes away in the east by triple digging that gray, it puts a little bit of doubt, I think, on Istari's plan to send 2 priests to cults this game.
I have to butt in here because the crowd was a lot of people, when they found out that I was casting this game with you, but they were egging me on to say that I hated stuff because just to kind of get the crowd in a frenzy. But man, do I ever hate this from Mr.
We get it.
And maybe maybe he'll win by a mile, and people in the Twitch chat will let me hear it. But God, I mean, especially with Orin and Cultist in the game, like I don't think I would have thrown a single priest to the cults like at all. I mean, even the priest to Earth, I feel is relatively suspicious. Um, I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. I would have played this entirely differently. From the Darkling's perspective, just like to really get into the game here, like it also taking this priest here lets cultists do some other things that and it's hard to say, but if maybe Defines takes coins here, or maybe he doesn't. But if I was him, I might be considering not taking coins, upgrading E6, and then Darklings is still ostensibly upgrading to a temple, right? So you get to pass first. But and remind me, Eric, when you pass first, your cultic goes first, correct?
So
Okay, and so Darkling's already cultic, so either way, he can't he can't use it on G4. So maybe he does.
Yeah,
take the
Defines did
coins
just
here,
take
then.
the coin. So that plan's out the window for now. I'm curious to see what he's going to do now. So to me, taking coins says that Defines is going to go shipping instead, right? That's usually you'll have the 2 priest income, the shipping tiles in the game. You took coins, so you'll have a bunch of leftover coins. So now, yeah, it seems like he's going to want to ship. But the question is to where. So we'll see. Yeah, I think it would have been cool to do that triple dig again after we saw it in International Clash. It would have been cool to see again, but I mean, this line is fine too. Like with the shipping scoring tile in the game, like this makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, I honestly I think both are very valid strategies. The reason I kind of like the double dig as well is just you get an extra 4 points in round 2. But the other thing is it's really likely Darklings doesn't want that ship pass style, and so maybe just passing on those digs, or maybe finding a single dig for B3 this coming round for Deep Finesse. Like that still looks like a pretty nice opening. I assume he's going Temple for Earth 2. He'll have the workers he needs. He'll have the shipping he needs. And, with Giants and with Darklings in the game, single spade is not under contestation. And it's really unlikely Orin wants a single spade in this coming round as well. So, a single spade onto B3 and, he's off to the races. He seems relatively good.
Yeah, I think, this Earth 2 is Orin. The other thing that it might foreshadow is that he wants to build a second temple relatively early. Like you do need workers to be able to do that. And yeah, so like taking Earth 2 followed by Earth 1 is, gets him some coin economy from the cults. He then has the worker economy from Earth 2. So I think this is solid. It is going to be, though, it's going to be tricky, like I was saying, right? Like as Orin, he just doesn't have any place to put digs now, right? We actually see, right? Like round 2 is going to be a digging round. Giants don't really want the double dig. Darklings don't want the double dig. Cultists can't really, well, they don't have the power for the double dig right now, and then they don't really have a great way to use it because they can't turn things brown next to Darklings. And Orin don't have anywhere to put their digs. Even if like they might get the power for it this round, but they wouldn't have anywhere to put the digs. Like this is kind of awkward. Like you'd think in like a round 2 game, right? Like a round 2 digging game, like the double dig would be this contested power action. But I don't think we're gonna see it get taken. We might even see a single spade get taken next round.
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised if we don't see cultists on B3 with a single dig.
I guess that's true.
This coming around, and B3 or H5, I think, are both really reasonable. And maybe if he gets the leech, maybe he double digs D7 if he gets to 2 shipping. That's also reasonable enough in my mind. But for sure, I don't understand Istari's pass either. He has the extra priest. I don't understand why he's not digging and then passing on to that Stronghold Sanctuary bonus. That's like so juicy for him, right? He, for some reason, he just didn't do that. Did you see that?
So he could have stalled out and given himself a chance to pass on that, right? Instead, Cultist passed last, and Astari passed on to this worker power tile that didn't have any coins on it. Didn't seem that good. I don't totally know where Astari's going with this.
Yeah, it's very strange to me. I don't understand it at all, really. But I mean, Astari's such a strong player. Like I don't mean to cast doubts on his play style here. it's confusing to me. And it does look like actually in this particular case here, Cultus is going to have enough, just enough for the double dig on f6. So man, what accurate play by D Finesse here, because I have to imagine Giants buys a priest here, right? A priest here is just so good for
both
them.
the priest and the
Dig E8
coins,
and
honestly.
head over to
So
yeah, oh
he
yeah,
can get
they're
both.
both wonderful.
Yeah, that's what I'm rooting for Mr. Fickles, is to get both the priest and the coins this round. I don't think anyone particularly wants the priest, so you might be able to greed the coins action first.
You would prioritize coins here. I think I would prioritize priest, and maybe that's a mistake.
Probably, but it's the safer route. I think Mr. Fickles is like, I think he's in the lead right now. Like, I like his position most, so maybe you just do take the safe action and say like a priest is, is what you need. Coin is being a little too greedy to take coins.
Yeah.
To go back to this, to go back to Astari real quick, I want to, just because I want to, whenever players make moves that, that I wasn't expecting, or right, that we're saying we don't like them, right? I think it's always, we've talked about this a bit before, right? It's always healthy to try to figure out, like, well, what was he thinking, right? Like you said, Astari is a great player, and so like, what was he thinking, right? Why did he save that priest? Why did he feel the need to pass before cultists?
Starting to see it. Starting to see it.
And yeah, so it seems like he wanted this tempo on being able to beat cultists to, what is this, the F7 hex. So I think it was less about, doing that dig and passing the right tile, and more about he saw what cultists would be able to do. Cultists actually had the perfect amount of power to do the double dig. And so, yeah, Astari was passing for tempo on securing F7. So I think that actually ends up being a really smart play from him. He saves his priest for a dig round, so he gets 2 extra points out of it. And so, yeah, it wasn't an immediately obvious thing, right? You just say like, oh, the Sanctuary Stronghold tile for Darklings, like that's great. You just do whatever you can to pass on to it. But in this case, I think it's like really rewarding Astari, right? He is, playing this very safely against cultists, and cultists actually, like turning this gray hex red is now maybe a huge mistake from cultists, right? Knowing that Astari can beat him to F7, Deep Finesse did that dig anyways. So now let's throw it back on Deep Finesse. Like, what was Deep Finesse thinking? Like, did Astari call Deep Finesse's bluff, right? Like, did Deep Finesse say like, I don't think you'll do it. Like, I think you've got a more important thing to do. You want a priest power action. You want coins. You want something. I think you have something better to do with your first action than rush to F7. And Astari said, no, I don't.
Yeah, and that's honestly wild to me. You called it right from the beginning of the game. Your intuition in this game is really uncanny, Eric, as always. Like Darklings and Giants Darklings and Cultists just getting in each other's way. More so than I had thought possible, to be honest with you. And we're going to see Fickles here get the priest. What a dream. What a dream. He's going to take E8, E6, E7 here, I5. He's going to put out 4 dwellings in this round.
Yeah.
Just a dream. Just an absolute dream. Wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, like, it's kind of funny because now F6 is a single dig away from E9 on for Giants. Oh God, that would be the cherry on top.
Darklings. So Zorus is pointing out in chat that one of the reasons why that hex went red is just like cultists didn't have anything else to do with their cult spade. So that's kind of interesting, right? Like he raced up water. He raced up water like to make sure he secured that spade, and then he ended up just having to put it somewhere where it would be of use to no one, right? He couldn't turn any hex brown because Darklings would dig that away. So he kind of had to dig it to red. But now the thing that's going to be interesting is, Deep Finesse no longer has any incentive to really invest in the F6 hex anymore, right? Like, he's done, right? Like there's no point in doing a double dig there when he can be spending his digs on H5 and rushing up to north, right? So he has many other places to put his resources besides digging F6. Darklings also just aren't going to have, they've only got 1 priest production right now. They're not going to have the resources to commit to, digging that away. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Giants are going to get F6 like next round.
I see no reason why Giants don't get it. Unless Orin gets shipping faster and gets to E9 faster than I think is possible, I think it's Giants, and I think it's a dream for Mr. Fickles, absolute dream. And the other interesting thing that we see here, and let's talk about this for a second because I know Astari had his reasons, right? Astari races to F7. Now, do the ends justify the means, right? Because was it really terrible? Like, was it truly terrible for Astari to lose out on the G6 F7 E10? Like, is G6 H7 I10 not like really similar? And he has to pass on a coins action as Darklings. He has to pass on. Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
Before
abort everything
let's
you're
come
saying.
back.
Nothing is more interesting than this
Abort,
triple dig.
come back to Darklings later. Let's see what just happened here. So let's chat about this for a second. So Eric, tell me what you see.
Disaster
Tell
on
me
the
what you
Giants
see.
front. Uh, things can change on a dime apparently, because this went from being like the dreamiest Giants game there possibly could have been to, oh my god, this is disaster. So Barnawal, in all of his Earth 2 glory, took the double dig and then did a hard dig on E8 to secure his sanctuary town and cut off Giants. This is crazy, and I kind of absolutely love it.
I literally can't tell you how much it looked like Mr. Fickles was going to absolutely 100% of the time run away with this game. Because look what just happened here, guys. Giants goes D4, E7, E8. He ships, he gets D6, D7, I5. He's going to dig E9 next turn. He's going to get F6. It's going to be the dreamiest Giants game ever. He's got tons of coins. He's going to have tons of worker production. He's going to make 3 or 4 TPs in round 3, hypothetically. Oh my god, and it all evaporates because the single shipping is not good for anything now.
Yeah,
right? He gets the
one thing.
I5.
I guess he can use it to like go a little bit north here if he wants. He can get onto B3 and A6. But yeah, suddenly he loses out on an easy town. He loses out on hex expansion. He's holding the dwelling points tile, so it's going to be extra points this round for him. Like you mentioned, yeah, just that early worker production is so good with how many coins he's been able to secure.
Yep.
On the opposite side, Barnawal was looking at having to make like 2 bridge towns. He was maybe looking at not connecting or having it be very difficult for him to connect and need 3 shipping to connect. Barnawal can now connect on 1 shipping. His green hexes that were maybe going to be threatened by Mr. Fickles getting over to the east are now not threatened at all. He can wait as long as he needs to take those green hexes. It's going to be very easy for him to get this sanctuary town at the very least. And like we were talking about at the beginning, Barnawal like probably needs to win this game to like stay in contention for for the overall like Tuesday Premier League crown. And so like making these kinds of like risky decisions to say like I can't afford to let Mr. Fickles get off to this big of a runaway start. Like if I'm going to have a chance in the overall scheme of trying to win this Premier League. So yeah, it's a super risky decision, but it's in a spade round. It cuts off the guy who's we think was doing the best this game. Lets you connect. Yeah, like I think this is the kind of like high risk, high reward decision that like that I love, right? To see, especially like this late in in a league format, right, where there's more implications than just this current game. This is exactly the kind of thing I love to see.
I mean, it's wonderful because as soon as Giants takes E8, Orin C4 is at risk. Everything's at risk. Orin's game falls apart so fast, and oh my goodness, does it fall apart fast? And you know what? I never. If I'm in Mr. Fickle's shoes, I'm starting the round saying coins, priest, fire me up, everything I want. And I never considered like you have to secure E8 because he had 2 turns to secure E8 and just never.
Yeah,
it never seemed like it was.
In hindsight,
threat,
he
like
did not
oh
need those
goodness.
coins nearly as bad as as E8. And yet, like you said, yeah, like in no world was I considering like, oh yeah, let me pass up on this coins action to secure E8.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild, and it's these types of things that make watching the Premier League like so fun and so cool, and casting it with you. It's I'm so happy to Tuan and Zoras for putting this stuff together. It's really awesome stuff, and let's see how Giants responds here. I mean, the obvious hexes to dig here are either G3, G1, C2, or B3. G1 and B3 are a little bit better for his economic expansion here, so I certainly would go for that. I think G1 or B3 in particular are the two strongest moves.
Yeah, it looks like he's taking
What do you
B3. Like
think
he
here, Eric?
still is on that dwelling tile. He still is, like trying to get his economy going in the early game. Like it's still, G3 is the, I'm very mad at you,
Yeah,
like let me steal your green hex kind of move. But B3 is the like I've taken a minute to compose myself. Like let's still, try to scrape by the best Terra Mystica game we can. So like props to Mr. Fickles, I think, for taking that deep breath. He says he got his computer set back up after flipping the table. He just said that in game chat. So yeah, I mean, I think this is the right move. I think this is disaster for Giants, but it's not the end of the world. They were in such a good position still, and I still think they started with an advantage in auction. They've gotten a lot of leech. They've still got a ton of coins. Like I still think they're in a good enough position that like they can put together a good game from this position. It's not going to be the runaway amazing game we thought it was going to be, but yeah, I like this position for them still.
yeah. Also, something to kind of forecast here as well. That it would be my estimation here that with all of the shenanigans that are going on, like wasted cult digs, triple digs, blocks from all four sides, that this is going to tend towards a lower scoring game here. You have the repeating TPs, you have the repeating big buildings. You do have the round six towns, which is really high scoring, but I mean, God, it certainly looks like these players are making lives hard for one another, right? Like it is certainly going to be a challenge, I think, for them to get this going. And all of a sudden, Giants go from an easy three-town game to very
It's gonna be
unlikely
hard to
at the
get.
three-town, I would
It's
say.
going to be like not
Darklings needs
inconsequentially get two towns for him.
no, of course, and I mean, Darklings has to invest in shipping to get three towns, which is always tough. And they did pass on that coins action. You do have cultists that lost B3, and so the north is no longer theirs, and the south is much more fragile to Giants just taking any of H4, I7, G3 at any time and shutting them down. So they don't have D7 to get around to any longer. So cultists, I think, have to win the race to D3 and then go D3, E3, E2, E1 potentially, but I think Giants might win that race regardless anyway. And so cultists really losing space really fast. I think one of the things that I had expected to see in that past round was Deep Finesse going to two shipping, right? And I think you had expected to see that too. Deep Finesse going to two shipping and taking B3. So Barnawall's triple dig here on E8. I mean, it has even further reaching implications, right? Not only is it terrible for Giants, I think it's terrible
This
for
is the kind of
cultists
thing
as well.
where like that's another like the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm seeing like new reasons why I love this move from Barnawall, and that's exactly it. Is like when you can find these ways to disrupt an opponent where the consequences are not just that they're disrupted, but then it forces them to play in a way that disrupts another opponent, which forces that opponent to play in a way that disrupts the final opponent. And if you can like get out unscathed from all of that, like that's beautiful, right? Like that's like the dream like block you make in Terra Mystica. And you're exactly right. Like, Giants getting cut off there, both so it's got all these positives for Orin that we already talked about. It now forces them to go up to B3, which makes it more difficult for cultists. Like I'm seeing like one town for cultists now, like maybe,
Maybe.
there's no way I mean, they should get one town, but like, there's no way in hell they're getting three towns. Like maybe they're getting two towns, right? Now that the North has been cut off to them. And so now that that's cut off to them, like now maybe they're forced to play in a way that gets in Darkling's way, right? Maybe cultists are now going to race to D3, right? Like that's
Yep.
suddenly a great hex for cultists to get to, which get in Darkling's way, and then right. So I think this is going to be like a hugely cascading effect where if Giants get that hex, it's so different for everyone else, like the rest of the game that everyone else plays. And yeah, like this is like having huge ripple effects for everyone else, and so that's why I love it from Barnawall. It didn't just disrupt Giants; it disrupted the rest of the table too.
Oh, I mean, certainly, and for all the chat, I think I'm watching the Twitch chat a little bit here, and it looks like mostly experienced players. I don't think we have too much of a beginner audience. And in the F2O tournaments, we do see some more beginner audiences where people asking kind of what's going on. And we won't necessarily get into that there, but it gives us the opportunity as casters to really chat more about the strategic implications of the game. And my goodness, is D3 a important hex here? Important for cultists, important for darklings, important for giants, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you
Suddenly
agree there,
D3 is a hex that everyone wants to be able to expand to. Darklings like might still be able to get a town even if D3 gets taken, but yeah, like they're gonna have trouble expanding to get to 3 towns if they don't get that hex. I don't know. Yeah, something like D3 is the new point of contention that everyone's like, you're trying to figure out like, well, Giants have one shipping, Cultists have one shipping, Darklings have some priests, right? Like who's gonna get there first?
Yeah.
And I don't know. Like Darklings could take a priest power action and try to race there naturally, but then Cultists and Giants would have the tempo on advancing their shipping first to get there. Like, um, yeah,
If I'm Mr. Nicholas here, I'm advancing ship first move here, and taking e4 if possible, or
yeah,
d3, one or the other. That would be my preference for sure. Maybe d3, just because then you have like two neighbors when Darklings takes e4, but and looks like I'm totally wrong here. It looks like he ignored that and went on with a G2 trading post. And D Finesse also created a trading post on G4. If we take a moment here to examine the game as well, we're in round 3 with 4 of the strongest players that are playing Terra Mystica today. Right, Orin ended round 2 with a temple and 3 dwellings, very underwhelming. Darklings with a temple and 4 dwellings, very underwhelming. Cultists with 2 temples and a dwelling, very underwhelming. And Giants with a stronghold and 5
normal-ish.
dwellings, which is, normal-ish. And so, I mean, God, the economies are so underdeveloped because of the infight, the fighting, right? Like it's wild to me. And you have all these people kind of doing like, mediocre things on the cults. It's such a dirty game in
Yeah,
here, such a
and
battle.
this is the kind of thing that like we might be seeing this because we're in a later, because we're in a later league, right? Like the players might not have played this way if this was week 1 and we didn't know that Deep Finesse was out to a commanding start and that you had to be playing for first to have a shot at catching him. So I think that might be like part of the result of this is like we're seeing players playing in a little bit smarter way to like make sure Deep Finesse doesn't get any advantages that are too big and to make sure that no other player like runs away with the first place because you're no longer just happy taking a second place.
Correct. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. What do you what do you see here in terms of Mr. Fickle's TP on G2? Like, is he TPing on G2 there to ensure that he beats Orin to Earth One?
I think
Is
that's got
that
to be
is
it
that
at
what
this
that
point.
is?
I think Mr. Fickles is realizing, he's not going to get 3 towns anymore. How's he going to make up points? And previously, I think the way he was going to make points was just by building a lot of trading posts, right? Like if he had gotten to do that round that we planned out for him, he would have been in a ton of spots, would have had neighbors in enough spots to just build 3 or 4 trading posts. Now he doesn't really have that. He's only got 2 neighbors for trading posts, and they're not. One of them is in a position where he didn't really need a neighbor. Like he didn't need that. So suddenly he's trying to figure out how he's going to make up points, and it seems like he's saying like I want to get Earth 1, and then he probably wants to Sanctuary next round and take a Water 1. Like he's going to need to start making up those points through favor tiles instead of hitting these towns hard in round 6. So yeah, I think that's where he's at. Is like he also, if last round he had built all those dwellings, well, suddenly Earth One's not as good for him anymore because, well, you've already got all your dwellings out on the board. So I think he's saying now, well, hey, there's a ton of natural red hexes I still have to build on because I didn't get to do it last round. Like, might as well take Earth One still.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense to me. And it does look like I imagine Barnwell here is taking Water One. I'd be relatively surprised if he took another favor. Air Two is too late. I think it's too late for Air Two here. I think Water One has to be the choice. Do you see anything
No,
different
I
here
think I
that would
agree.
make any
Seems
sense?
like he's building another trading post this round, I guess. And so, yeah, just getting out that, just locking up the Water One. There were only 2 copies of it left. Because Darklings have just gone Earth One, Water One this game. So, yeah, locking up that scoring seems good. Like you said, this is shaping up to be a lower scoring game, and you're going to need at least one scoring favor to like keep yourself in that pack. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, now I wonder here if Deep Finesse advances ship here, and then goes ahead and double digs H5 D3. That's certainly what looks appealing to me. D3 is pretty strong here. I think just for everyone. I could be wrong though. I don't know if he has the coin income to do this kind of stuff, but to me, what would you be thinking in Deep Finesse's shoes here? Because it is very scary to me to be on Temple trading post.
Yeah, I mean the
What
problem.
are
So
you
he loved
thinking
to
here,
advance shipping. The problem is that just uses up all his coins, and he's not getting any more coins for a little while, right? Like he there's no more coins coming from the cults. There's no more, uh, you know, he doesn't have Fire One. He went Earth Two. Uh, hey guys, Deep Finesse does it too. He goes Earth Two in a game with light worker rewards. Uh, I made that mistake a couple games ago in Fjords. So yeah, I think Deep Finesse is like really starving for coins right now. Uh, yeah, so he does go over the double dig here. That was what I was gonna say, was that I think he can't afford to advance shipping. He just needs to get the double dig out of the way to get more dwellings down now. Uh, Hopefully, he's gonna be saving some of his power to hopefully get a coins action next round. Um,
Got it.
and yeah, but he's also gonna need a bridge. Like this is yeah, he needs a lot of stuff. He needs a bridge to form his town, but he's also gonna be so short on coins. But then he needs a shipping advance to like really get anywhere after this. Um, yeah, I don't quite know how this is going to work out for him. Now we see Mr. Fickles take G3.
Yeah, and I don't quite understand this G3 take. It feels wrong to me. Would you agree with it? Because to me, there's so many hexes that he needs now, right? I mean, it would be nice to take I6 and I7 or I6 and I4 to secure that town there. C2 he absolutely needs. It would be nice to get G1 to get over to E3. It would be great to get E4 or D3, and three shipping, which he ostensibly wants at some point, um, gets him to D6 anyway. So what does G3 do for him? That it feels maybe a little bit reactionary. Would
I
you
don't
agree with that
know.
assessment?
There's like a few things going for it. If he wants to build a sanctuary town off of G2, he would like neighbors for those trading posts that he'd be building. And so, he wouldn't have neighbors on I5 and I6 for at least a while. And so, maybe he's hoping for that neighbor on G3, build H4, get that bridge there. So it's like, it's a little bit better there. If he wants to get to D6, he was like, he didn't have a crazy easy path to D6 anyways, right? Like he could have dug B4, but it's like, if you're going to dig B4, like why not dig G3, right? Like it's almost just as good to like, you're going to need two shipping and one dig to get over to D6 anyways. So like, why not G3? I think it's a bit of that, and then I do think it's a bit of I was on Team Orin being in the lead, and so this might be just another one of those like rubber banding things, just like rein in the leader again, right? Like you deny him his space for a second town. Like where does Orin go from here? It's quite a bit tricky for him.
No, yeah, and you know what, I do understand that. And I mean, obviously, Orin, triple digs don't come without a cost. Let the chat remember that. While I think the E8 dig was unbelievably cool, um, and probably right for the circumstances, like I mean, it sets his economy back pretty substantially, right? Like there are things to be left wanting about Orin's game, right? Two temples, a trading post, and a dwelling. Looks, two temples, a trading post, and two dwellings from Cultus. Like just not a lot of really advanced economies. And then it started going for the pure points play of water one, earth one. I do think he's getting quite lucky that E4 and D3 aren't being messed with here. I mean, he passed pretty early in this round. If I was Giants, I would have certainly considered advancing ship and digging out E4 here. And again, perhaps that's the wrong idea for me, but it's
I
what I
think
was
Giants are
certainly
still
looking
eyeing
at.
this race over to, we talked about that red hex F6, right? Like I think they're still really eyeing getting up to D6, digging E9, getting to F6. Like that's going to be a place where Giants put their second town, or a third town, I guess. They could sanctuary town off of G2. They can bridge D4 to C2, and then like maybe get a third town over there. So I think Giants are still like playing for their own game a bit more, and I like that if they can get over there. I still like what Giants are doing. I think. Yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
playing to
I
win
mean,
network here and have an outside shot at a third town.
if we do look at kind of what's happening here, I still like Giants game the best. I think in terms of where they're sitting, just because you're right. I mean, if everything breaks correctly, um, Giants, Giants can dig C2, they can dig H4, and they can dig E9. That's their three digs. Forget the upgrading digs for a second. Forget all that other stuff. That's three towns, right? They get their town through there, their town through E9,
Mhm.
E7, their town through G2, G3, H4. But all of a sudden, we need four bridges in the game, right? So it's definitely there are definitely some interesting things happening. I wouldn't hate, and I don't know, what do you think
Not
here?
at
Like,
all.
I
I was just
wouldn't
gonna say
hate a
that
Giants
there's a
bridge
lot of bridge
here.
pressure in this game. Cultists need one. I guess Orin don't need one anymore. That's the other plus of taking G3 is Orin previously wanted a bridge and now they don't because they can't get it down there. So maybe that's Mr. Fickle's way of taking some bridge pressure out of the game. Um, but yeah, I do still think Giants are in good position, but I would not hate a bridge here either. Orin don't have shipping yet, and so C2 isn't really under threat. So I think you can fairly safely like bridge to C2 and leave it there for a little bit and like make your decision later. Hopefully you'll be able to leave it until Orin gets shipping. Um,
Yeah,
they go ahead and
yeah, and
pass.
he goes ahead and passes, and I mean he grabs the shipping
That
tile,
makes
so
sense.
maybe that's you know makes perfect sense. Cultist certainly wanted it for points, and I think Cultist although is still very very happy here with a coin style here. A
As
coin style
cultist, I'm
here
taking the
for
bridge
Cultist
now.
is kind
Wait, this is actually
of
huge.
yeah,
This is huge. Wait, okay, so another thing. So
absolutely.
I want to talk about this Orin trading post. So Orin built their trading post on F4, which is never going to be part of a town. And I believe they did that after Giants took G3. I don't remember. I fully assumed Orin were going to build their trading post on D5, which would give them the tempo with their first action. They could build a sanctuary on C3, finish the town, take the two key town. Two key town is so important for Orin in this game, especially with landscapes, right? And with
So
cultists in the
important.
game. If you can nab the two key town, cultists are only looking like maybe this is a one, maybe two town game, right? So if you get that, the two key town, suddenly it's like, okay, you're pretty much a lock to win two cults,
Yep.
which is huge for your landscape. But the fact that they built that trading post on, uh, on F4, is that right? Uh, cultists didn't do it. It gave cultists the ability to take the bridge, and then with their first action, cultists could have completed the town and
Yep.
taken the two key town. And so like that was a bit of a shift back and forth there. Is like as cultists, I would have taken that bridge. I would have secured the two key town. I think it's hugely important if you're only going to get one town in this game. Like maybe it looks like they're going for a second town here, but um, yeah, if
Yeah, and
you need those keys.
I certainly this you need it, and I think you killed two birds with one stone and just hard dig I7 first move, right? It gets you through. Um, it's everything.
Yeah.
Uh, it's everything. This is interesting. Who put that dig on G1
Yeah,
there? Was
he
that
got two
Cultist?
Colt Spades and used them both to turn that yellow. So he's really banking
Okay.
on Giants being nice, or Darkling's not getting shipping. This also means like maybe he wants two bridges this game, right? Like maybe he wants like that bridge. I mean, it's seeming like he's going for that bridge town and maybe this other bridge town. Either that, or he's gonna try to dig H6 and get onto H7. That can easily be blocked by Darklings. Um, Yeah, I don't know what defense is going to do here. Like I trust him, so I'm assuming he's got something in mind. I just can't figure out exactly what it is. If he's going to try to go for no bridge towns, if he's trying to just stall and like bridge as late as possible, so he doesn't complete his towns, before round 6, so he can sneak out those points. But I think if I were in his shoes, I really would have been rushing the two key town here because I think it is going to be that important. It's some great economy coming on the cult rewards. It's cult points over Orin that you'd be stealing.
Yep.
Orin, who are still having a respectable game. Um,
I think there's a chance that something like 120 wins this game. That's what it looks like to me. I might be wrong. I might eat my
no, I
words,
mean,
but
I agree
holy
with you.
moly.
We're in round 4, and Orin, like 4 structure Orin, are the only ones to have broken 50. I mean, at the beginning of this game, you saw my eyes light up when we saw round 6 towns, and I had these 4 town dreams for everyone, and we're like, oh man, I hope everyone gets 2 towns. This is crazy.
Also, I just don't understand what's going on here. So Barnwell also, I don't know if you saw that, but he declined a spade at the beginning of this round, right? He missed his cult spade because he's got no shipping and nowhere to dig. And then with his stronghold, he just took fire one. I mean, in almost every world of mine, I take Air 1 here. I don't understand that at
And I guess
all.
so
I
he's
just
not going
don't
to
get it.
have
I mean,
he's not going to have any
I'm
trading
lost.
posts out. I
lost.
think he's just not going to have any
Tell me
trading
what's
posts
happening.
out at the end of this round. Uh,
Yeah.
and he's planning. My guess is he's planning to take Air 1 next round. His next round is going to be building a sanctuary for Air 1 and a trading post to finish that town. Although maybe at that point, if it's round 5, maybe you just wait until round 6 to finish your town. I don't know. I love Doran's game for a
So
minute, but he's still only got 4 structures. What's going on?
he's on. So he's on the Stronghold Sanctuary bonus tile, right? Is there any world where he, for instance, uses his 2 steps on air, and then uses his 2 priests and his 2 workers to make the sanctuary on E8 or C3?
No, that's not a world because the Horn Sanctuary is 8 coins for no good reason. I
Okay,
thought about that for half
got
a
it.
second, but it's that
Oh,
dang 8 coin sanctuary coming in again.
sheesh.
Yeah, I don't.
Sheesh. Sheesh.
What is he gonna do? There was a point where I
I
really thought he was gonna like advance a shipping last round and like get out a couple more dwellings, but I guess if you're committed to like playing this tall Orin, like he took Earth 2, like we said, right? Like might as well do it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think he's building the sanctuary this turn. I mean, I just have this feeling. I could be wrong, but I just think he's doing it. I I have
uh,
this I have
he sent a
this gross
he sent a
he's
priest to
doing it.
fire, so it's not happening. He doesn't have the workers
Ah,
anymore.
shoot, shoot, shoot.
It was a good feeling. It was a fun feeling.
I was wrong. I was wrong. And I guess it looks like D finesse here with the double dig on I7G1, I suppose, right
Yeah,
here.
that's got to be it.
Um, looks like it's got to be it.
I7 is actually
Um,
super important for him
you,
right now because with Orin having 4 structures on the board and Darklings like essentially definitely not connecting, Cultists are going to win this with they're going to get second in network with like 9 structures or something. Like they just need to connect. They just need to make sure they connect, and if they connect, they're getting second in network automatically,
yep.
right? So I7 is actually super important for that.
Yeah, perhaps they actually don't use the double dig here. Perhaps they take a perhaps they take a bridge. Perhaps they take a bridge here, and then hard dig I7 because if you're Giants or you're deep finesse, you have to believe that Giants is digging E9, right? There's almost there's nothing else for them to do here that makes too much sense in my opinion. But
Well, as Giants,
I don't
if
know.
it gets back to me as
I don't
Giants,
know.
I'm still really wanting to take this bridge again, right? If Giants want 2 towns, they need 2 bridges. Let alone 3 towns, they need 3 bridges. Like, you got to start getting some of these bridges out. I mean, there's no way they're getting 3 towns at this point, right? We can just, I think we can
Well,
put that to bed.
the bridge the bridge pressure is astronomical. Everyone
And
wants
there's just
bridges,
no way that
right?
you can
It's
like get, even if Giants were able to take 3 bridges over the next 3 rounds. There's no way they're going to have enough resources on top of that, right? If they're taking 3 bridges, that means they're like not taking coins actions and doing things like that. And if that's happening, then okay. No, everything is thrown in the air again.
oh god. Okay, so D finesse goes ahead and takes F6. I mean, God, Mr. Fickles just must be. You know what though? Does this make Mr. Fickles want to immediately go to D3? He can't. No, because Darklings just takes D3 on this turn. So it wasn't that. I guess what. Hmm. So D finesse thinks that he can get. I mean, to me, I'm just in my mind here. I'm thinking and I'm looking and I'm like, I7 and G1 are so important. And Giants can mess with G1, Giants can mess with whatever, and he dedicated it to F6. That seems so odd to me because the double dig is almost worse than a bridge in a lot of ways. There, right?
Yeah.
I'm you
Oh,
talk to me, Eric.
I want to talk, but I don't know what to
This game.
say. um,
Give me the give me the analysis of a true master here. I need to hear it. Because I'm out of my depth. I'll admit it. You know, having having casted quite a few times in the past year, I certainly have not been part of the game where I've been some of the moves have been just so wonderful, and so all these players, they're extremely strong. And so just yeah,
Yeah,
talk
so
to me about what you're
this
seeing
really
here.
feels like, and it's what I have to imagine is in Deep Finesse's mind with that F6 play. Um, this really feels like all these players must be thinking a lot about like the current position of the game, right? Like how well each, not how well each position looks, but like taking into account where the cults are going to stand, and the bonus tiles everyone's currently on, and how the bonus tiles are going to break in the last 2 rounds, and who still has towns to go, and who's going to win network, right? Like these players could easily be calculating like much better than we're able to right now, who's actually in the lead, and this might be the kind of play where Deep Finesse says, like, I can't let Giants have that hex. It's actually important for the network race. It would be important for them to get a third town. It would, like, introduce more bridge pressure into the game if they, got that, something. Like, there's some of these bigger considerations here, I think. Because, yeah, I think I would have bridged there. I think, like I said, I think locking up the 2-key town, I think, getting that town pressure out of the way for only 3 power instead of 6 power seemed great. But yeah, like so there could definitely be some like other considerations in there of deep finessing, like hey, like maybe I have a better shot to win network if Giants don't have this red hex to get into. Maybe taking this hex forces Giants to use their spades elsewhere and start messing with Orin or something.
Yep.
And so that's, in my mind, that's what's on Deep Finesse's. That's got to be what Deep Finesse is thinking about. He's totally fine building a sanctuary anyways. He'll get points for it next round. So it's kind of like, why not put this there instead of doing a bridge? I get an extra dwelling out and have a good place to put a sanctuary town. So yeah, it does feel though like these players are really just sitting here like trading blows back and forth. Like this has not been a clean game. This is like cheap shots
This
below
is a
the waist all day.
this is a dirty, dirty, dirty game, and I'll just call out the chat here for a second. But Super Sarni in the chat says this looks like a random under 100 elo open table game, which I mean, holy moly, like the scores and and just what a wild ride here. It's just it's certainly one to remember, one for
Yeah,
the
whoever
record
comes out of
books.
this like is gonna be like 2 black eyes, torn lip. Like I want this winner's interview. Like they're gonna be out of breath, like just from fighting this battle.
No kidding. And so let's take stock. Okay, so let's take stock. So Eric, where are your power rankings right now? Let's take a I'll continue talking, just give you a couple seconds to process. But we've got Barnawal on the orange seat, we've got Deep Finesse in the cultist seat, the Starry in the Darkroom seat, and Mr. Pickles in the Giant seat. Where do you have them? Tell the chat what's happening.
Okay, I don't know, but I just realized that in all of this mess, we haven't talked about a Starry in a while, but everyone's been trading these blows, and the Starry's got 45 points. He's still sitting on a priest, 7 coins, 2 workers. He's sitting on a pass tile. It's going to be worth at least 6 points to him. He's still got 2 towns coming. He'll have a handful of cult points because of those priests he threw earlier. Like, maybe like are Darklings winning this one? I think I might have Darklings top of my rankings right now. It's close at least. Cultists, just taking stock of what they've got. Cultists still does look like they're gonna have 2 towns coming. If they can secure I7, I think they're gonna have second and network locked up pretty handily. They're playing a great cult game, of course, and if they can get the 2-key town, they're gonna absolutely smash the cults. And no one seems that concerned with taking the 2-key town yet, so they can maybe just get that. Yeah, so I think my thought right now is Darklings. No. I'm gonna be bold here. I'm gonna say cultists are in the lead, and then Darklings, and then Giants, and then Orin. That's my power rankings right now. I think Orin started off well, but the fact that they're gonna be sitting on 4 structures at the end of, I guess maybe 5 at the end of round 4, they might not get. They might connect and not get any network. Like there's a world where Darklings, like with only half of their structures in play, like beat cultists or beat Orin on network.
Yeah.
And I don't think Orin are doing well enough on cults to make up for that fact and like this insanely tall game that they're playing. That's kind of my take on them right now, is that if you're playing tall Orin, you like need to have a ton of points at this point already. You need to have hit the bonus tile super hard, and you need to be like smashing the cults, and they're not really doing any of those things.
No, and I totally agree. And it's interesting here. So Astari had a pretty big decision here, and I want to talk about this because Darklings are my best faction. And the way that I would play this game out here is most people I think understand, or most really strong players have a really good understanding that Darklings love their priest producing buildings, right? And the natural thing to do there would have been to build a temple on G5, right? Perhaps for Air One, and continue on that path, or perhaps to do something of that nature. What I really think is a fantastic kind of end game strategy here for Astari is you pass for these coins, you take coins power action first move, maybe worker power action even wheels to you. Both are very good for you. You advance shipping once. You dig out B2. You dig out A5. You set up some stuff there with A4, A3, A4, A5, B2 with a one shipping after the coins action. You build your stronghold on G5 and set up 2 6 structure buildings. And you build 1 TP and get ready for a fire 2 temple in round 6, just to absolutely take advantage of 2 really big towns, hopefully 2 priest towns, potentially 2 of those 8 VP towns. But the way Astari has set this up, where he's going to have 2 6 structure towns just ready to go, as well as with that that one shipping over to B2, A5, A4, A3, and the stronghold. He should have plenty of digs to get that done. He should have 2 easy trading posts with water 1 on B2, A5, A4, A3 are the dwellings that bring it out. Perhaps even stealing C2 from giants and bringing some more rune on Mr. Fickle's game. So this is why I think Darklings is in the lead, because I see that way of him in a really straightforward manner scoring a lot of points, and I do think that that's probably going to be enough, while also capturing some network points because of Orin like really severely handicapped economy. Talk a little bit about your front runner here, Eric, about Cultist, because to me, I can really see and understand Darkling's game plan, and I think that's his best line coming out here. We'll see if he agrees. But talk to me a little bit
So
about
I
the
think
Cultist side of things
whereas
here.
Darkling's game plan is going to be in-game points, right? Like you said, I think it does seem like they're going to be able to get 3 towns. They're going to have lots of priests, do digging, earth one, water one stuff, right? That's going to be Darkling's plan. Cultist plan is definitely going to be end-game scoring, right? I think their goal is going to be to stall out as long as possible, but still get either the 2 key town or just a 1 key town. The 1 cult step town might even be pretty solid here. Try to snag like 24 points on cults, 12 points on network, without putting in too much effort. So that's just like 36 endgame points right there, as opposed to Darklings who are looking at maybe 10 or so. So I think Cultist game plan, is to just keep it within 26 of Darklings, right? Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But and then just absolutely dominate that end game scoring. Cultists here are also going to be, there's a chance that they can get out both a stronghold and a sanctuary. I'm not sure if they've got the resources to do it. They're definitely short on coins, but there's a chance they can do both. Their stronghold is a ton of points. It's a stronghold round. They're sitting on the stronghold tile, so like that's a 16-point stronghold if they build it this round. So so I think like that's going to be Cultist plan, is like if things can break the way, if they can get just enough coins to get by, if they can lock up these cults that they're ahead on. They just have to keep it close enough with Darklings to where their end game scoring can really kick in and take the lead.
Yeah, I think Mr. Fickles here comes to. I think this move just has to be bridged to C2. I don't see a really. Oh, you know what? No, never mind. He literally can't do that because Orin has a shipping. I didn't see that Orin had advanced shipping here. So perhaps this has to be a C2 dig to start off the round.
Then that leaves the bridge for Deep Finesse, who has to take it, because Giants, like if Giants don't get the bridge this round, they're definitely passing early to secure it next round. So this is back to that that bridge pressure that both players had a chance to alleviate like several rounds ago, and they chose not to.
Yep.
And now it's going to catch up with one of them. I think either Giants or Cultists are going to be forced to pass much earlier than they'd like, just to make sure they secure the bridge. So they're going to have to, right now most of these players would like to have a long round, both to maximize the resources they're spending and to try to get onto a scoring bonus tile. for round 6, but one of these players, and it looks like it's probably going to be Mr. Fickles, is not going to be able to do that because he's going to have to pass early to secure the bridge.
Yeah, and I would be not shocked. I would be not shocked to see Barnwell take the bridge here.
Oh, I want to
Like,
see
just
it.
to
Do it.
connect
Do
C4
it.
and D.
Just chaos. Complete chaos.
I would. I wouldn't be shocked, and then maybe he builds his sanctuary, maybe he doesn't. I don't know, but I just wouldn't be surprised to see it because it hurts cultists
Yeah.
or giants, one or the other, pretty badly, right? In a big way, and so it does certainly feel like he'll take
The
a
thing
bridge
going against
here.
that, I think, is
Again.
so Barnwell is sitting on the shipping tile, so getting one more shipping out this round is actually really good for him. And I don't know if he'll go this route. I'm assuming he'll build a sanctuary, but I think there is a route where if he advances his shipping and gets down some more dwellings, now suddenly Barnwell might actually be a contender in the network race. Right? If he got one more shipping and got 3 dwellings down, suddenly it's like, okay, wait a minute. Like, cultists don't have an easy second place, or not so easy anymore. I have to imagine the sanctuary is just a lot of points, but it is also just like all of his power, to build a sanctuary if that's what he wants to do. This is.
I mean, he just doesn't really need the workers though, so I think this is an interesting. I mean, he's about to hit his timer pressure here, and so I think he's got to make a move, but I think we'll see it in the next couple seconds anyway.
He does advance his shipping.
He goes ahead and advances his shipping and apologizes to the table. I think he probably didn't realize. Sometimes when you think when you're really just looking at the different opportunities here, he's probably looking at sanctuary, he's probably looking at shipping, he's probably looking at that bridge, and just didn't realize he was about to go overtime there. So I imagine Deep Finesse snaps up this bridge here. I think that it would be really confusing to me if he did something else, but yeah, and there you go. He goes ahead and
have we called a single move this game? Have we ever said like this is what's going to happen, and then they just did it?
We're completely off base here. I mean, why did Azores invite us out here to just wax poetic about things that we don't know
I should just be
about.
talking this whole game about Deep Finesse win double temple. He's gonna win. That's all. Like he did the opening. That's all you need to know. The one true Terra Mystica opening.
I imagine here, like I said, that that Astari is digging up B2 A5 here, and then just going ahead with the stronghold and putting down 2 dwellings here on B2 and A5, or potentially just a trading post. I guess he probably gets enough power to take the workers' power action. I think that's probably worth it, even though it seems a little bit weird. I think it's probably worth
I agree,
it to
because
do
so
that.
one thing like you pointed out, if he wants to build the stronghold this round, which I think he does, it helps him get out his landscape, which is really good. It's 5 points this round. He would love to have a trading post up for next round so that he can take fire 2 with his first action.
Exactly, and it seems pretty. It just makes sense to me. It just makes sense to me. Let's see here.
Yeah, more and more I'm betting on Astari. So the thing Deep Finesse has got going for him also is he's on a scoring tile, whereas Astari's not. But these 3 towns from Astari, if he's able to get like 9 points, 9 points, 7 points or something, right? Like from these towns, like I just don't know how anyone catches him. Like there's so many points. Like you said, this is a game where 120 is gonna win, if that. And I just don't know how anyone else comes close to that. Barnwell's got a single town coming and not many end game. Mr. Fickles has probably 2 towns and a decent amount of end game, but he's only at 63. And Deep Finesse is only at 37. Like he's got a ton of end game coming, but he's so far behind right now.
Yeah, and I think there's an outside shot that I don't know what's going to happen 100%, but I do think that there is an outside shot, perhaps that that Cultist does win. Does Cultist win 3 of the cults? Maybe Oren gets there before him.
I think they'll win 3 of the cults just because they maybe don't have to. The other thing going for Cultists here is that they might not even need a 2 key town. Like they can maybe just close out air and then just be sitting high enough on earth and water to where Darklings won't beat them. If you just sit at step 9 on both, like Darklings aren't going to invest 3 priests to winning earth or anything.
And I mean, if we take just to not to do too much math on stream here, but I think Darklings is going to get 3 towns, and I think they're going to get 3 high point towns, right? Like call it 10ish points each, because of the priest town stuff. So that right there is 45 points. So I think it looks to me like they're way out ahead, but I don't know. Maybe they don't get any network points. Maybe Oren has them on the network, just because 8 probably won't do it for third place anymore. So who knows? Maybe I mean this is a fascinating game. I absolutely love it. It's really cool.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
cool to watch, be part of.
I gotta say, so like I think it was Super Zarni in chat asked earlier if I wish I was playing this week. Maybe no. Like maybe I'm pretty glad to be on the sidelines here because we're sitting here trying to analyze these players' positions, and I'm just going like, what the hell? Like I don't know what I would do, right? Like there's no good options, right? Like I said, these players are just trading blows back and forth. Nothing's been predictable. I said in the past, I feel like I gain my edge when I can predict my opponent's moves, and I can think out further than them, and this is the kind of game where opponents are doing such unpredictable things, not bad by any means, because we've seen some of these moves. I think I've really liked them, even though I haven't seen them. But the fact of how unpredictable this game is, I think, is making we're seeing players take a ton of time on their timer. We're seeing these lower scores than normal. We're seeing unexpected moves back. Someone makes an unexpected move, and in response, they make an unexpected move back. Right, this is the kind of game that's really tough to play in, and I'm a little bit glad to be sitting on the sidelines of this one.
No, without a doubt. And we see that this continuous kind of bridge shenanigans and Astari goes ahead and takes the line that I think, to most of the top players, it was relatively expected, right? It makes the most sense. It seems like he's got the game in hand in terms of it's a pretty straightforward way to go about it. But this is interesting. No, still these guys don't take this bridge, right? And I guess Mr. Fickle's the problem with the bridge is that he makes his town early if he takes it, right?
Yeah.
Which is just a huge bummer. And so maybe Deep Finesse. He certainly I think he just judged it correctly, right? He's gonna wait. He's gonna take the bridge when it suits him to take it. Now, does Deep Finesse is Deep Finesse? Deep Finesse is making 3 towns here, isn't he?
Is he? I mean,
it looks to me like a trading post on F3, a trading post on I7, and a stronghold on I7, and a sanctuary on F5 does it, because he's gonna have a million workers, right? Literally, he can triple dig I6 almost no problem, in a lot of lines, right? And so maybe he gets the 3 towns.
I don't know how he has enough coins for that though. On top of connecting, he still needs another shipping to connect. He still would need to build a sanctuary in that world, and 2 trading posts and a stronghold and take a bridge. That just feels a lot to be able to do.
Is it? So I mean, we could just so it's 2 trading posts, a stronghold, and a sanctuary, right? That's 6, 14, 22 coins, right? He's got 12 of them now.
Down to 9, he just took a bridge. He's got to do a triple dig. He's got advanced shipping. I don't know. Maybe he can make it work. I trust that DFNS is calculating this out a lot more than we are right now. I'm along for the ride. I picked him. I picked Cultist, so I'm rooting for it. He opened Double Temple. I want to see Double Temple get at least 1 win.
It would be really cool to see a 3-town game from Cultist here with a triple dig on I6 or I9. I6 probably in particular would be cool. Just because of the fact of the matter of that you can now connect on 2 ships, right? Do you understand Darkling's waiting there? I would just put down my landscape there in almost every world, I think.
I mean, I guess so. There's no reason to put down landscape. You can just do that next round, and I think he's trying to stall out for a scoring bonus tile, right? So as long as the story isn't the first one to pass, he will pass on to a bonus tile that gives him points in the last round. The question is are any of those better than just, he could also like try to pass early, pass on to like 2 coins, 3 power, a worker, and then take a coins action. Like that might be just as good. But it clearly seems like what he's trying to do is like trying to stall out for, a bonus tile.
Let's see. I mean, he's actually after cultists, so this makes sense. This makes more sense to me because giants and Orin are probably passing pretty early, and Istari getting on to that 8 extra points and 2 extra workers is almost is just what the doctor ordered for Istari there onto Definesse's tile. So I certainly understand that, and it makes some sense to me. So I would be pretty surprised if anything else happened in this one other than Orin is passing for the. Oh, maybe Orin doesn't. Orin really doesn't want the dwelling bonus, but they're not getting any. They're not getting anything better. So more points here to cultists and to darklings. Is there any way that we've underestimated Orin here? Is Orin just pulling up the?
I think Orin are pulling up the rear. The thing that it still is incredibly significant what they choose to do with the round 6, though, because if they choose to take the 2 key town, fight cultists on cults, things like that, that's going to really affect the end game scoring here, like what town they choose to take. But it just does not seem like they have enough. They just don't have enough end game scoring to make up for the fact that they've only got 61 points.
Yeah, and Deep Finesse goes ahead here and makes a town to secure his 2 key town, get up to win those cults, and he does it with Fire 2 here, which leads me to believe. Can he make the stronghold?
I don't think he's going to do it with the stronghold. I think he can do it, but I think it's going to be just with 2 trading posts. That's my feeling right now.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there was a way for him to put the stronghold down on I7 here, because that would be quite the coup.
The other thing that's really significant about this is he was able to lock up fire and air, which are the 2 cults that Orin had the most invested in. So, well, fire is also important because he got a couple extra workers, by advancing up to space 10, from the cult rewards. But also now, like, this further, increases the chances that cultists just win all of the cults because, right now, Orin are, just who's going to contest him on water, right? I think he can just win water by sitting at step 9. And so then all he has to do is get those, finish a town, get those last couple steps on Earth, and he can probably win Earth too, right? Like, I don't see anyone. I think cultists could get all 32 cult points here.
Yeah, and it certainly looks to me like cultists get all 32 cult points, and unfortunately for darklings here too. And it goes back to those 2 early priests. Orin just going to pass them on water and earth then, I think, probably. Or maybe not even water, maybe just earth. But, and if I'm a starry here, I just am licking my chops here and taking the worker power action, building a TP on B2, and a dwelling on A5.
Yeah.
And that's
Starry's totally okay having a really long round, maximizing his income, and just waiting for cultists to pass.
Yeah. Man, I wish Deep Finesse had just a couple more coins here to throw up that stronghold on H5. That would be so cool.
Yeah. I think he's totally okay with this, though. He might actually need to like not throw up the stronghold just to get the income from, the trading posts and dwellings and stuff. Because he's still like, I know he's getting a lot of income, but he still does need a decent amount of stuff to like connect and build a trading post and do a triple dig. Like, it's a good amount of stuff. If he wants to like get out more dwellings, to maximize Earth 1, and he's only got 41 points. I've been there as cultists, where it's like, oh, you just feel like, I don't know, he's making 3 towns and he's building stuff and he's winning all the cults, but then you look down at your points, you're like, oh god, like only 41. But so yeah, it's gonna be rough to catch a starry, right? Like he's gonna have way more end game, but he's already formed one of his towns.
Yeah, Barnwell has no moves here, right? So if I'm a Starry here, I just take the 2 workers power action, build a TP, build a dwelling, and then Orin pass, and you get onto the big building pass style exactly like you wanted. Pretty dreamy for Starry and
Yep.
extremely well
Yeah,
executed
I
as
think that
well.
makes this a Starry's game. Like that has to be at this point, right? He's getting a pass tile. He's getting an 8-point pass tile into last round, where he's the only one who's still got 3 towns coming. That's too many points. I don't think anyone can catch up to that.
It's too many points, yeah, and not only that. I mean, if he plays this appropriately, I think as well, he just goes ahead and gets the he goes ahead and also is just in such a wonderful spot to. Oh, and he actually passes, and you know what? I don't like it, obviously. I also said I hated Astrari's game at first, and he's obviously playing a wonderful game. But the reason I don't like it obviously is because I just think it makes more sense for him to build out that TP and dwelling here to make sure that you have fire two first and get the big towns. To me, that's more important. But he's going to go ahead here and take another route entirely. Sit on this dwellings, and then go
Yeah.
ahead and actually take the coins power action first, because Giants is inclined to take the bridge first. So that's just a completely different line that he chose to take. I don't actually think he needs the coin spire action to do what he needed to do this turn, which is why I didn't particularly think that this was the route to go.
Yeah, this
But this
definitely
is
works.
totally
The thing
fine.
that
It makes sense.
it'll be interesting to see is, like, he does, like we talked about, getting that trading post up last round would have given him the tempo on fire too, which would have let him take the towns he prefers. Probably just 2 priest towns. So this route he does. Oh, Mr. Fickles greeds and takes the coins.
Yeah, he greeds the coins. What a guy!
So this route,
What a guy!
we'll
Mr.
see if Astari still gets the towns he wants.
Yeah, and this is why Istari, I think. I mean, even the best players in the world can take the wrong line sometimes. Like I think it's pretty clearly it was the wrong line for Darklings, right? Like, how much better would he feel with already that dwelling on A5 and a TP on B2, with 2 extra workers as opposed to 2 extra coins? Like, it's the same thing. It's just I'm sure he would love to fire 2 immediately on B2. That would be really, really nice. Grab both the priest towns, and then or both the 8-point towns, or however you want to do it. I think the 8-point towns aren't good in this particular circumstance. I think it's just 2 priest towns, or a priest town and an 11-point town, and then another priest town. But now he's behind on the tempo there, and all for what, right? Um, it's yeah, just an inaccuracy, and I wonder. I don't think the inaccuracy costs him, but I don't know. I also don't really know how many points D Finesse has in his pocket
Oh,
here.
I don't want to
Can you
calculate.
tell,
It's too
Eric?
hard.
Yeah, I'll just leave it.
I still get the feeling Astari has this. There's just nothing. There's nothing anyone can do at this point that really disrupts him. I mean, I guess Giants can disrupt him by digging A4, but like that's not going to happen. Yeah, like I think Astari can.
Is it not going to happen? Are you sure?
Well, Giants will take the bridge first, but actually Astari doesn't have any dwellings left, so maybe that's another pretty big, you know, misplay there. Is that Giants can take the bridge and then just dig A4, because why not?
Take the bridge and dig A4. Why? What else? What else are you doing as Giants with your dig?
Yeah. So if Astari misses out on a whole town.
Oh my goodness, that's a huge swing. That's a massive swing.
It's the kind of thing that might give the game to cultists, if I'm even right about cultists being in second place.
Honest to God, if I'm Giants, I'm just doing it. I'm taking A4 or A3. A4 or A3 is the same stuff. I don't know if he ever. I don't know if he does it, but I would be taking bridge, and then I would be taking A3 with my next move, or A4 with my next move.
That's another huge downside of what Astari did by not prolonging his round last round. He's now behind on his tempo of, not just his tempo for making towns, but his tempo for securing the space that he needs for this third town. So that's huge.
Correct.
And he chose to prioritize taking A5 instead of like A4 and A3, which are actually the more important ones. Those are actually the ones that he needs. He didn't really need A5.
Nope. 100%. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah,
Mr. Fickles got greedy and he managed to get the bridge and the coins too. I love it. I kind of another thing I've been a big advocate for is right, like recognizing the position you're in and knowing when you need to be greedy and when you need to not be greedy. And Mr. Fickles, there was no reason for him to not be greedy there, right? He's had some rough breaks this game. Everyone else, like we said, we thought Astari was having a great game. Like, there's no reason to not be greedy and like take those coins away from someone else and just say the only way I'm winning this game is if I get both anyway. So why not try for that?
Yep. Yeah, and I totally agree 100%. And I also just think that for the most part here, let me just see this for a second. So Mr. Fickles, what kind of so he's getting 0 endgame call points, or is he getting 4? Is that going to matter? Like how? Because he's still 40 points ahead of Deep Finesse. This is an awesome game. I love this. Deep Finesse getting 2 more towns. Mr. Fickles getting 1 more town. Deep Finesse is 32 points ahead of Giants on Cults. I suppose he's beating Giants in Network.
He's also got a pass
yeah, I suppose.
Um,
He's got a pass style. Yeah, it still looks like. It looks to me like, if I'm Mr. Fickles, am I beating Darklings if I take A4, A3?
yeah.
I may be.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
definitely doing that because Darkling or Giants also have enough workers to where like if they need to do more digs to like get out more dwellings for network purposes, they don't need to dig B4. Like B4 would open up A9. That's the other spot they could put their dig is they could dig B4, which lets them get onto A9, which is another spot for network purposes and Earth 1 purposes. But they've got so many resources that they maybe just say like I can just do that hard dig. If I could just do a hard dig if I need to get out more dwellings for network purposes, and I'd rather like block a town of the guy who's in first place and is potentially the thing standing between me and first. Like like I said, we're not doing the calculations enough to know like what the actual standings are, but that seems so significant.
I agree. I just don't. I don't see a world in which Mr. Fickles doesn't take A4, A3 from Darklings, and it certainly looks to me like he's upgrading his digs anyway, right? I mean, TPs are good, but upgrading dig is good. Can you ever put down? The only reason maybe you don't do it is if for some reason you think you can get down to, just the 3 temples left, and even then, it doesn't seem right to not punish Darklings for what they've done. It's funny, we were lauding Astari for his accurate play with building the stronghold and setting up. Like he kind of we chatted a little bit about what that perfect round 5 would look like, and he was on to that perfect round 5 from everything that we were saying, everything that we saw. The stronghold on G5, the 1 upgrade of the ship, over to B2 A5. We thought it's kind of weird you don't put down your landscape on A4. I personally would have done that. But really, I think the big mistake there is you just take workers' power action. You don't need the coins. You don't even get them, right? You didn't even get the coins, and then you just end on that 2-worker automatic 8-point tile. And so this is we'll see. Maybe Mr. Fickles doesn't punish him. We'll see.
I'm really curious to see this move from Mr. Fickles. You're waiting with bated breath. It also, it has like some of the other consequences for this are like what Darklings do with the rest of their resources in turn, like because there are network implications here, right? Like Orin still only have 6 structures, right? So like Darklings could definitely win network if they just build out up here. Beat Orin in networking and get 3rd in network if they build out up there. So like what extra resources they have to continue that fight is interesting too.
Yep. Yeah, and here I wonder if Astari goes ahead and takes Fire 2, or if he goes ahead and builds A4. But yeah, you can already see the damage that it's done, right? Of him not being prepared to take Fire 2 on his first move. The 11-point town is gone. Both the priest towns are gone. One of the 8 B town is gone. He doesn't need this. Like he just doesn't. And here he goes and built A4, and certainly if I'm Mr. Fickles, I'm digging A3 here with no doubts, with no hesitation, as fast as humanly possible. That it is what it is there. Barnwell, this guy always finds ways to score points too. I mean, obviously this game wasn't necessarily exactly what he was looking for here, and I'm certain he would have felt a lot better if he had, you know, secured the economy to ensure that C4, B5, A10, A11 town. But um, you still finds a way to creep up there in the
Yeah, I mean, he's
points.
got 6 structures and 90 points. That's not easy to do in a track that like the track said to play tall, but like not quite in this way, you know. uh,
Yeah,
um, yeah, and deep finesse. He's completed 2 of his towns, and he's still only at 61 points. So we are still wondering like where all these points are going to come from. I mean, he's sitting on a
yeah,
pass tile. He's going to pass for at least 6. He's got another town coming. He's got 32 cults. Like they'll be there, but it's still just it always feels so weird to only see 61 points after and we're just a couple moves away from the end of round 6.
yeah. And I mean, does D finesse here just make a stronghold on H5, or I suppose it depends on if he thinks he can get down, like how many dwellings he thinks he can get down, and where he's going to get those. And the reason I said stronghold, but potentially, is just because the lack of water one, right? Um, but well, I imagine he sees something in terms of the network implications with
I
Darklings.
think it's just
I
the
have to
fact that he's
imagine
sitting on
where
the ship
um,
scoring tile, so he can put those points. He can put those resources into shipping uh, instead of a stronghold, and make those points that way.
yeah. And do you think that there's ever a chance that Mr. Fickles just misses this A3 move here?
Maybe it's a little weird. I wasn't paying attention to it at first, and it's like it's not a thing you're usually considering with giants, right? Like you just don't look at those
Yeah,
hexes, right? I think that's part of it. I've definitely done this where it's like you're not looking at A3. You never think about taking A3 as giants. Yeah, and he didn't take it. Like that's just not a hex that's ever in your brain. And so it was like I think it was very
yeah.
clearly the right move to block a town there. Um,
Oh, yeah.
but I think that there's a good chance that like if we ask him after the game, he just ignored those hexes of the map because you're never there as giants. I don't think I've ever built on A3 as giants.
Yeah. Yeah, and there you go. I mean, Astari's off the hook, and um, I wonder if right as he digs this here, Mr. Fickle says, "What have I done?"
Yeah,
Right, to himself. What have I done? I imagine that he certainly is, and this is, I'm sure, deep finesse as well, because it's easier to see other people's games than it is to see your own game. Sometimes I wonder if deep
yeah,
finesse is saying, Jesus, like how could A3 not be taken?
yeah,
And shaking his head there. And so we'll see after the game. To give Mr. Fickle's credits, hypothetically, right? Maybe he did see it and judge that he doesn't want to give Cultist the boost. And there's some, I don't know, right? I don't. Maybe he's playing for second or whatever it may be. I don't know exactly what it looks like, and who knows? Maybe it doesn't change his positioning anyway. It just jostles Cultists and Darklings, because I haven't done the calcs, and perhaps someone in the chat has. But we'll get to maybe chat with Mr. Fickles after the stream, and you just at least see if
yeah.
he jumps into the chat
I do wonder,
afterwards.
like, we'll see the difference. I'm guessing this puts Astari like well back into the lead here, but with the fact that there's such worse towns available now, right? We're talking like you were saying, like instead of getting 3 11-point towns, he's now getting 7 points tops for these towns, and so it seems like Darklings are going to win by a decent margin here, but I do wonder like just how far he could have slipped down if he had both like not gotten a third town and then his other 2 towns had been like lower scoring than we were expecting. That would have dropped him back to the pack quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and I just think that these small inaccuracies like really, really, really add up in brutal ways sometimes, right? There's nothing else really to say about it. Then it can be brutal. That small inaccuracy by Astari passing onto the dwelling, getting the coins action he thought, um, just brutal. Like what a change
Yeah,
and what could have been, right? He starts on TP. He starts with Fire 2. He goes ahead and just absolutely smashes those priest towns. It lowers everyone else's point ceiling. It hires his. This move probably cost him, in the range of 15 to 20 points. Just not taking that workers action, building the TP in the dwelling in round 5. maybe upwards of 20 points it costs them. So,
Yeah.
pretty substantial.
So we do see Mr. Fickles building a trading post over here, on this A10 space that he took. We have chat wondering if he can do 3 towns. Logos says no, so I'm guessing the answer is no. But I wonder if that was like another thing where he just like didn't do all the calculations. It was like, yeah, maybe I have enough for 3 towns, and just went for that. Like the fact that there was this like possibility of 3 towns, like, staring in his face there. Maybe he just thought, oh, I'll just go for it. I don't have anything better to do, and he didn't think as deeply about cutting off a starry on A3. But yeah, it certainly doesn't look like he has enough. He might have had enough actually if he had gone for Fire 2 instead of building a town with another trading post. But
yeah, I mean, I certainly without Fire 2, I don't think it's possible here because he needs the digs. He would need to advance digs. Like, I just don't think it's there, right? It certainly doesn't look there to me. And yeah, I mean, I don't see much more. There's not much more juice in this game other than how does Astari, like, what is Astari doing kind of at the end here in order to, finish up. And so, is there a way where Astari can do this without Fire too? Can he make 3 TPs and a couple dwellings and I mean, that's more points, right?
I think he's close, but I don't think he quite makes it without Fire 2.
Yeah, and so I mean, if that's the case, then it's certainly bad, right? Yeah. And cultists with the we called the cultists 3 towns. That was pretty cool. Would have been a little bit cooler with Stronghold, I think, but still very cool. Yeah, I think to me, it just.
I mean,
I don't know.
To go back to another thing we were wrong about, speaking of cultist 3 towns, that's why cultists dug that F6 hex. We were wondering like why the heck they did that instead of bridging, and it was like, well, because they had a 3rd town there, and that was just like, we never saw that, but it seems so obvious in hindsight.
Yeah, in hindsight, like what a move by Deep Finesse, and especially because I7 and G1 are just staring him there in the face. It also he took F6 away from Giants when he needed to, right? And that's part of why Deep Finesse is like one of the best players in the world right now. I mean, and Eric, I not to flatter you too much, but I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the two of you are, the top 2
I'll
players
give him the
in
crown
world
right now. He's
right
proven
now.
it against me.
And you guys are battling it out, up there at the top of the arena standings, up there near the top of the ELO leaderboard. So it's really cool to see you guys play, and it's cool that I certainly never would have prioritized F6 there over I7 and G1 back when he was doing that, and it turns out to be very, very accurate because Giants just beats him to F6 if he does take I7 or G1, and he was absolutely correct in his assessment that they were not under fire from any other faction, right? That type of intuition and that type of planning and understanding the game flow like that is that's world class.
I mean, so at one point, I'm a pessimist, but at one point I said cultists will be lucky if they get their 1 town, and here they pulled off 3 towns. So I mean, like this feels like from the position we were talking about earlier, right, where cultists were getting cut off, where Darklings beat them to hexes in the east, where Giants and Darklings both started in the center and took away an easy center town from cultists, from them having to like use a cult spade at the end of round 1 that didn't really do much for them immediately, right? Like, there's all these things going wrong for cultists, and like even if they don't win this, and I don't think they are, I mean they might, but even if they don't win this, right, like to still pull this game plan out, right, like I think that's what the best players in the world do really well, and I think that's what makes Deep Finesse one of the best players in the world right now, or the best, is his ability to, like, even when things don't break the way he's expecting to, like he can still pull a 3 town, win all the cultist game, just kind of out of nowhere. Like, in this game where everything's going wrong, everyone's cutting each other off, he still like composed himself, made the right reads.
Yeah, and like you said, it's just world class, right? There's nothing else to say about it other than that. Really, really cool stuff. Yeah, and it was really good. And so, when I'm looking here, it does certainly look like cultists and Darklings are relatively close, right? Because Darkling can't catch cultists on network here, correct? Right, so that's six points, and then quite a bit more from cultists. I don't know. It's close enough. They both have pass tiles. I don't want to count it out, but I mean, what a battle! And man, Astari, like, if Cultist does end up getting close to him or does end up surpassing him, I mean, just those slight inaccuracy guys, like that, just what separates like and actually, let's go back to the beginning of the game when I said I hated I hated the priest the three spots on water and earth, and I hated the early pass where he Astari raced deep finessed G5 through G6 through F7 through E10. Did he really need to do that? He could have built his sanctuary a turn earlier with 4 extra points, have G5, G6, H7, I10, right? Like, I mean, do we really like just because he was in a position to win the game? Do we still really like that early game move? Winning results and process are should also still be reviewed in that light, I think. And I don't know how you think about that, Eric, and how you think about improving your game, but obviously sometimes you can make really bad mistakes in games, you still win, right?
Yeah, I still, regardless of if Astari wins or not, I'm still not a huge fan of those priest to cults. Like you called at the beginning of the game, they were never going to be more than 2 points, right? In a game with Orin and cultists, like unless you invest a ton into those cults, which you don't want to do either, you're just not going to get more than 2 points. And so, yeah, it's maybe turning out to be a decent swing against giants, and so maybe that's significant. But yeah, I definitely would have loved Astari's game a bit more if he was able to use those priests to get out some more early dwellings and get his economy going. But this is also the kind of game where just staying out of other people's way and just doing your own thing, right? Like Astari may have done some things that we disagreed with, but he also kept himself in positions where other people couldn't mess with him. And it turns out that was maybe the most valuable thing to do this game, was to just always put yourself like, I mean, he maybe let giants mess, he almost let giants mess with him in this last round here, but throughout the early rounds, right, he made sure to pass before cultists so that he could secure the hexes he needed. He passed early to secure coins actions when he needed them. He just kind of kept himself half a step ahead of everyone else and making sure that they couldn't mess with him in the ways that were most detrimental to him. And so that ended up being kind of the story of this game, is in a game where everyone else was duking it out, he was able to just play a 3-town Darklings game with a lot of points.
And it's funny, we haven't really chatted about Mr. Fickles. Obviously, he had a fantastic last round. Does he have enough for the victory, actually?
He's got a lot of points.
Because, I mean, obviously, he wins network pretty easily. I imagine he's got an advanced dig in his game here. And, maybe does he have enough for a trading post and a ship advance and another dwelling or something like that? Like, I guess it doesn't really matter. He wins network. Right, that puts him at like 130-ish, and he does actually get a handful of call points, because it certainly doesn't look like Darklings will mess with his 4 call points here. So his 4 call points and his his dig advance and his network win, I would imagine that he's ahead of Cultist for sure. And it's hard for me to tell where Darkling stands, but I do think, again, Darklings punted 15 to 20, probably 20 plus points with that just one inaccuracy in round 5. And so maybe it did open the door for Mr. Fickles, who we thought the E8 triple dig kind of undid his game in a lot of ways. He kept cool, and I think that he also didn't really, like, outside of that, down the stretch, secured his 2 towns, made sure he was winning network. Didn't try to do any funny things. Like, you can look at the cult track there. 0 priests committed to the cult, like literally 0. That's what you like to see in this particular game, where a priest to the cult here is just a disaster of an investment for the most part in this game. And so it looks like he's going to take 4 cult points home with 0 investment, right? To Darkling's 4 cult points with 4 points worth of priest investment and 2 early digs. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it comes back also to you yourself said the Giants you thought won the auction pretty handily. And perhaps, we hadn't talked too much about him in round 5 and 6 because of the more interesting dynamic for Cultists and Darklings. But, he played a super solid game here. And I think maybe it is enough for the win, depending on, again, what happens with the Astari here. It's hard for me
we were talking earlier
really
about, right,
count it out.
Mr. Fickle's like keeping his composure, right? In round 2, whenever that was, he got cut off, right? Like he still like played the best round from there, given that he got cut off. And I think that ended up hugely benefiting him, right? He was able to, he was able to put together this 2-town game, win network, scrape together a handful of cult points, and to be sitting on 117 as Giants, right? He took that Earth 1. There was at one point where he took Earth 1, like he kind of had to pivot into another game plan. Instead of building all of his dwellings in round 2 and then all of his trading posts in round 3, okay, fine. I couldn't build all my dwellings in round 2, so I'll take an Earth 1 in round 3. And yeah, I think that's worked out really well for him. He's ended up with a ton of points from Earth 1. Easily winning network here. Yeah, I like what he's done with this. And I think the fact that he did have such a good cushion from the auction is like helped, right? He could afford to get messed with a little bit and still play a clean game and still win from there. He didn't really have to hit anyone else back or like do anything crazy to like try to regain an edge because he just already had a bit of one from the auction.
Yep. And yeah, here Starry, unfortunately, again, has to take this coins down. It's not what he wanted. It's not going to help him do anything. He doesn't have networks aspirations, beyond. Does he have network aspirations
No.
to beat Cult this year? I don't see. Yeah, and he Starry unfortunately ends up with a power town, a worker town, and a coin town. So like, what could have been, right? Especially because I don't see a particularly efficient way of him converting these resources anymore, other than just.
I mean, depending on this endgame calculation, right? Who's in the lead, right? It might turn out that like taking air 3 to pass Giants on air or something is actually significant for these endgame scores, right? It's worth it to spend those resources to take 2 points away from an opponent and give 2 points to yourself if that opponent is the one that you're fighting with for first.
No, yeah, very, very fair, and that's perhaps the most accurate way to go about it. I see Mr. Fickle's used his cult step on fire rather than air, which means he thinks that the power is substantially significant. But I suppose what that means is he's advancing shipping for 4 points here. I don't know if I
think it's got to be right. Because the story can just take his pick and beat him on air or fire, like whichever one he chooses anyway. So you might as well advance your shipping and maximize your own points.
No, because Astari, I think Astari still his best path towards points is just trading post dwelling, And so if that's the case, then Darklings needs to dig E2 or H7 or T8 or whatever, and so he can't pass them. But maybe he can just throw. Maybe Astari throws Priest to air because it's enough of a swing. I'm not sure. I think maybe just a dig in a dwelling just makes more sense though because he's on the dwelling pass tile. So I assume Mr. Fickles thought that through and
I think
has a better sense.
It does seem like Astari's just gonna have too many points here. He's still passing for 9 points, and he is getting 4 cult points and 6 points on network. Like this is too much from Astari. We were saying 120, but Astari is actually putting up, a 145 game here. That's much more than we were expecting in the middle of this game.
Yeah, and obviously we harped on Astari and give him a hard time, and I think that the big thing here is that I mean he had more, right? He had a lot more in the tank. And yeah, it looks like he still won by far. So I was off base there saying, hey, Mr. Fickles is potentially winning, and I don't even know, maybe Cultist is still beating Giants. I haven't looked deeply enough into it here, but we'll see in a second. I'm sure Chad just gives us a hard time, but I do think oh man, how sad is this though? If Giants just takes A3, they win the game.
Astari's winning by 3, so easily. Like that drops Darklings down to 3rd place if that happens.
Yeah, man. If Giants takes A3, it's just GG. It's just game over. It's Darklings goes to 3rd place, and Mr. Fickles wins the game. Oh my goodness, what a turn of events, right? What a turn of events. Holy moly. Yeah, and the coin town was used to build out that TP and the dwelling, and so it's 6 coins and 10 points, right? That's so substantial. That's extremely substantial. It just if you go ahead and take a look at it, it's just massively substantial.
Yeah, huge shout out to Astari though for, like we said, for playing in a game with all this crazy stuff going on, for keeping his head down, picking the right lines, like you're picking lines where he was like least likely to get blocked, got away with a few things, but executed on that, right? Got his 3 towns, put up a 145-point game in a game where we were saying, like I said, we were saying 120 would have been a good game, and he put up 145. So yeah, really solid game from him. Congrats to Astari.
Awesome stuff, Astari. Like, extremely cool play. Again, fantastic, fantastic everywhere, kind of across. We may disagree with the early priest of the cult, but honestly, like perfect, almost perfect play aside from that round 5 early pass, which looked at the time to be not that big of a deal. Passing for the dwelling and the coins kind of makes sense. We didn't even realize how important it was, until kind of the very end there, right? The chat giving these guys a hard time because everyone took a timer penalty
The
except for
clean
Astari
win
as well.
That's like that's the clean blitz win,
people's
right?
champ.
Being the best on time and winning the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, are we chatting with the players here, or is this are we
I don't know.
wrapping it up?
Sometimes we chat with the players, so let's wait for that. I got one more thing to say. Well, if we're still waiting for Astari, or regardless, is that the theme of this Tuesday league so far, this Tuesday Premier League, is brown factions opening double temple and then getting a really disappointing like third or fourth place. So shout out to Deep Finesse for continuing the tradition.
Yeah, I mean he's got a 100% has to go ahead and just emulate you there, without a doubt. It looks like we do Astari in the Twitch chat, so I don't know if he'll be joining us on stream here, but Astari, congrats if you can hear us, and I'm sure you can if you open up the Twitch chat. Awesome game. You can go ahead and rewatch the VOD and curse at us as we question your wonderful moves throughout the game. Really good stuff. Oh, and it looks like he's agreeing to just jump on a quick vid with us here, so that's pretty cool. Awesome. Sorry, how you doing?
Nope, not yet. I also do want to say though, also like because of this close ending, like congrats to Mr. Fickles for playing like a really good Giants game. I think getting massively cut off really, like I and I think many other people, right, might have a tendency to get tilted, right, and like to see your beautiful game plan fall apart that dramatically, and then to still put together a game that like was a couple moves away from being won at the end, is really awesome to see.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure Mr. Fickles, when he watches the VOD, is gonna just go like just cover his eyes when he sees that he missed the A3 dig there. You with us
hello
now?
guys.
Hey,
wonderful. How are you doing?
Pretty fine, thank you. What about you?
Yeah, we watched a cage fight in there. That
Yeah,
was a heavyweight
I don't know.
battle in there.
That was definitely a strange game in the end. I think Mr. Fickles had it. Definitely, yeah, if he just dig my third town, I mean, he's fine with it. I don't know
how
what
sweaty
to
are your
think.
palms right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and
sorry.
I was just gonna say, of course, we had seen it and the chat was on it and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you knew that A3 was under threat or A4 was under threat as well. Just talk us through a little bit of round 5 and round 6 there, and then we'll let Eric ask you about the game.
So I knew pretty early that I wouldn't connect this game, so I was aiming for just 3 turns for round 6. I was aiming to get the good bonus tiles too, so getting the coins and just making points out of dwellings and the sanctuary. Maybe in the end of the round 5, I just could have made one more dwelling and one more TP to would have been better to secure the town, but then I just didn't want the passing the passing shipping tile because I knew I wouldn't advance the navigation, so I just preferred to go earlier and go for the dwelling one.
No, for sure. And we were giving you a hard time if you go back and watch the VOD about not taking the workers and going TP and
Yeah.
dwelling there, just to make sure you got fire two
Okay, I
there.
will watch. Yeah, for sure, because there were some options. They were great too.
Don't worry, I mean, you came away with the victory, and we were like, oh my goodness, he left A3 hanging, and I'm sure you'll watch just as Mr. Fickles watches, and I'm sure we'll not be pleased with Eric and I criticizing you guys all so much when you're such wonderful players. But Eric,
Yeah,
if
so I
you
was
have any
curious
questions for
about
us, start here.
like one of the other big moves for you this game was at the end of round one. It seemed like you passed, and we were wondering if you were thinking about the fact that cultists could kind of like dig their way across through that gray hex and claim some space in the east. Was that on your mind when you passed, that you wanted to pass ahead of cultists to stop them from doing that?
Yeah, definitely. They could have done that, and so I just wanted to secure the East too. So I went ahead. But yeah, I didn't really like my run one, just because the two priests in the cult weren't that good in the end, because it was only one bonus for each. But since I couldn't get the walkers because giants took it with their uh, second action, and I couldn't take it earlier. That was, yeah, I changed my plans a lot of times because I wanted to go Earth 2 first and then second temple in the round 2. But then if I didn't get any dwelling in the first round, I couldn't do that again. So yeah, I had to change quite a lot.
Got it. Yeah, well, I mean, that's honestly just an incredible game there. Really cool to see so many different strategies play out. And I guess the last thing we'll ask you, because it was the most, and we'll let you go. And I've got to actually play my Tuesday night game. I'm sure that my group is waiting for me here. But what do you think of the triple dig on E8 from
On
Warren?
the yellow,
Yep.
yeah, I don't know. I have to ask Barnawal what he was thinking about his game plan, because I'm not sure yet, and like I'm sure he had something in mind, something great. So yeah, I would like to listen to him too. I I really don't see right now, so I have to watch the review and just watch the different options that could happen.
Okay, Astari, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thanks to Zoris and Tuan for hosting, and Eric, thanks for joining me and co-hosting. I learned so much from you every
Yeah,
time, my
thanks. It was an
friend.
awesome time, and yeah, congrats to Starry. And you see from the standings right now, congrats on moving up to second place in the overall standings, and you've got as good a shot as anyone, at taking it home next week. So good luck then.
Oh.
I'll see you out there.